Your Honor.
Thank you. Is Mr. Zimmerman? Okay, thank you. Well, while we're waiting for that, can we approach?
Yes, please.
Jury back in?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's go ahead and bring him back in. T. Please be seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And while you're getting settled, I'm going to ask you my questions. If your answer is yes, please raise your hand. During the lunch recess, did any of you have any discussions amongst yourselves or with anybody else about the case? No. No hands are being raised. Did any of you read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case? No. No hands are being raised. Did any of you use any electronic devices to get on the internet to do independent research about the case, people, places, things, or terminology? No hands are being raised. And finally, did any of you read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case? No hands are being raised. Mr. Guy, is it your next witness? Please call your next witness.
Sergeant Anthony Raimondo.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir. If you please tell the members of the jury your name.
My name's Anthony E. Raimondo, S-R-A-I-M-O-N-D-O, and I'm a junior.
Where are you employed?
I work for the city of Sanford, sir.
And in what capacity?
I'm a police sergeant.
With Sanford Police Department.
Yes, sir.
For how long?
I've been there for 14 years, sir.
All right. And your current position is what?
I'm the training coordinator for the police department.
And what are your duties in that position?
I coordinate all the advanced and specialized training. I also handle the mandatory retraining and general instruction, sir.
Can you give the jury an idea of what specific areas you train in?
Well, I'm certified to teach general topics, but I'm also a high liability instructor, which means I teach firearms, use of force, defensive tactics, and driving, things like that, sir.
Are you also a member of the Sanford Police Department SWAT unit?
It's the Seminole County SWAT team, sir.
And how long have you been in that unit?
I've been on the tactical teams for about 12 years, sir.
All right. In your duties, do you have a specific duty on the tactical team or the SWAT unit?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
I'm one of the police snipers, sir.
In February of 2012, what was your position with the Sanford Police Department?
I was a police sergeant on patrol, sir.
And what were your duties as a patrol sergeant?
I co-supervised a squad of approximately 14 police officers, sir.
And in total, how long have you been a sergeant with Sanford PD?
I was promoted to sergeant in 2004, so 9 years as a sergeant, sir.
All right. And can you give the members of the jury an idea of the other positions you've held with the Sanford Police Department?
I've touched pretty much every section. I started out in patrol like everybody does. I went into field training. I worked in the K-9 unit. I worked in the special tactical unit, the undercover drug unit, the uniform drug unit, the street crimes unit, professional standards section, and of course now I'm in training, sir.
All right. Do you have any prior law enforcement experience?
Yes, sir, I do.
And where was that and from when to when?
I worked for the City of Bunnell Police Department from 1996 to 1999, sir.
Do you have any prior military experience?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what was that?
I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, sir.
And how long you were in the Marine Corps?
I was in the Marine Corps for 9 years, sir.
All right. What is your educational background?
I have a Master of Science degree in criminal justice, and my undergraduate work was criminology and law enforcement technology. I'm also a graduate of the Command Officers Development course through the University of Louisville, sir.
All right. If you could estimate for the jury, please, the approximate number of times in your law enforcement career that you have responded to the scene of a shooting.
Quite a few, sir.
Would it be in the hundreds?
To actual shootings or shots fired call, what specifically do you mean, sir?
Shots fired.
Hundreds of times, sir.
All right. Let me turn your attention then, please, to the evening of Sunday, February 26, 2012. Were you working as a patrol sergeant at that time?
Yes, sir, I was.
And on that evening, did you respond to the scene of a shooting at the retreat at Twin Lakes Housing Complex?
Yes, sir, I did.
And tell the members of the jury how you were notified of that call.
I heard a radio transmission, sir.
What was the nature of the transmission?
A suspicious person call, sir.
Was that transmission updated?
Yes, sir, it was.
How so?
It became a disturbance, sir.
And were there any further updates after it went from suspicious person to disturbance?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
That the subjects were armed and that shots were fired, sir.
What area of town were you in when you received the first dispatch?
The west side of the city, sir.
All right. And about how far is that from the retreat at Twin Lakes complex?
I remember being in the area of St. John's Parkway and Reinhardt when the call came out, sir. So it was within a couple miles.
All right. And how long did it take you to get to the scene?
It was very quickly, sir.
Within 5 minutes?
Yes, sir, I'd say so.
All right. From your experience, did you know where that complex, the retreat at Twin Lakes, was located?
Yes, sir.
And how did you know where to go when you entered the complex itself?
When I went through the gate, I radioed Officer Smith, who was already on scene, and I asked him which way I should go, whether it was left or right.
All right. And did he give you directions?
Yes, sir, he did.
All right. Your Honor, could you dim the lights, please? And may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Sergeant, I'm going to give you a laser light. Works by pressing that button. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 2?
Give me just a second, sir. Yes, sir, I've got it.
All right. Is the retreat at Twin Lakes complex located on that exhibit?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Can you circle that with your laser as best you can?
It's this area right here, sir.
All right. And Reinhardt Road, do you see that on the aerial?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. Can you show the members of the jury where that is?
It's this road running right here, sir.
All right. And just give the jurors an idea, if you would, of the route that you took to get to the complex first.
The intersection I was speaking of would be at the very top of the screen. So what I did was I came south on Reinhardt Road. I turned east onto Oregon Avenue here, I believe it is, and into the complex, sir.
All right. Let me show you State's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize that as a aerial of the retreat at Twin Lakes complex?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. If you'd show the jury then the route that you took when you got into the complex and where you parked.
The gate is here, sir. This is where I asked, should I go left or right? I was told to go left. I went here to a 90-degree bend in the road so that I started traveling south. I stopped right where the laser pointer is, and I angled my car up under the grass, sir.
And what was the purpose of angling your car up on the grass?
As I rounded that first turn, I saw Officer Tim Smith and someone else standing between the buildings, sir.
All right. And what was the lighting like in that area?
Very poor, sir.
All right. And what did you do anything with your car to aid in the lighting?
I pulled my car in and angled it towards Officer Smith and the male that was standing with him, sir.
And did your headlights then illuminate Officer Smith and the subject he was with?
It was better, sir, but lighting was still poor.
All right. When you got out of your car, did you go over to the area where Officer Smith was?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. Were there any street lights or poles in that area, or pole lights in that area?
I don't remember seeing any pole lights, sir.
All right. Can you show the members of the jury with your laser pointer where approximately Officer Smith was?
My car would have been here, and Officer Smith and the male would have been standing somewhere here near this T intersection, right where the laser pointer is now, sir.
All right. What was the weather like that evening?
It was drizzling, sir.
All right. Had it been raining off and on prior to your dispatch?
Yes, sir.
Where is it that you went? What else did you do?
I looked to the south, sir, and I saw another officer, Officer Ricardo Ayala, standing over a body in the grass.
And did you go over to them?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. The person who was in the grass, did you later learn that person's name to be Trayvon Martin?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you show the members of the jury where on the aerial approximately Trayvon Martin and Officer Ayala were located?
Somewhere right in this area, sir.
All right, and that would be south of the T area?
Yes, sir.
All right. How was Trayvon Martin's body positioned when you arrived?
Mr. Martin was lying face down with his head oriented generally towards the north and his hands underneath his body, sir.
All right, and as we look at State's Exhibit 1, is it correct as far as north and south? Would north be to the top and east to the right, etc.?
Yes, sir.
All right. State's Exhibit 5, does that give obviously there's a flash in there, but does that give a general idea of the lighting conditions out there when you arrived?
Yes, sir.
And State's Exhibit 77, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the way Trayvon Martin's body was positioned when you approached it?
Yes, sir, it is.
Did you see any movement from Trayvon Martin's body as you approached him?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you hear any sounds coming from Trayvon Martin when you approached him?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you attempt to see if Trayvon Martin was still alive?
Yes, sir.
How did you do that?
I attempted to get his pulse, sir.
And where did you attempt to take his pulse from?
On his neck, sir.
Have you had training in that?
Yes, sir, I have.
All right. Did you detect a pulse on Trayvon Martin?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you or Officer Ayala move Trayvon Martin's body after you failed to get a pulse?
Yes, sir.
How did you do that?
With the assistance of Officer Ayala, I rolled Mr. Martin's body over onto his back. Generally I would describe it as west to east, or maybe it's easier to say, sir, that I rolled him onto his left shoulder and onto his back.
Okay, so as we're looking at State 77, you would have rolled him from left to right?
Yes, sir. From the left side of the screen towards the right side of the screen.
Yes, sir. After you rolled his body over onto his back, did you again try to get a pulse?
Yes, sir, I did.
How did you do that?
Same carotid area, sir.
And were you able to get a pulse?
No, sir, I was not.
All right. What did you do next?
I breathed for Mr. Martin, or I tried to, sir.
In a CPR technique,
Yes, sir.
do you have training in CPR?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. And what was your role in that, the CPR attempts on Trayvon Martin?
I was doing breaths, sir.
Did you use any type of mask when you first started CPR with Trayvon Martin?
No, sir, I did not.
Why not?
I did not have it available, sir.
Do your standing operating procedures address whether or not you should use a mask when performing something like CPR on a victim?
Yes, sir.
And what do those standing operating procedures hold?
Our SOP requires that I use universal precautions, which in this case is the mask you're talking about, sir, unless the situations, or I personally decline to do so because the situations are what I consider to be rare and extraordinary.
All right. And did you consider this to be an extraordinary circumstance?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. And is that why you put your mouth on Trayvon Martin's mouth to try to breathe for him?
Yes, sir.
Did you later ask for and receive a breathing mask?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did Officer Ayala assist you in performing CPR on Trayvon Martin?
Yes, sir.
And what was Officer Ayala's role?
Initially, he was doing compressions, sir.
Did you hear anything when you were performing CPR on Trayvon Martin?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
Bubbling sound, sir.
And what did those bubbling sounds indicate to you?
It meant that either air was getting into or escaping from the chest in a manner that it was not supposed to, sir.
All right. And what did you do upon hearing those bubbling sounds from Trayvon Martin's chest?
I called out to the crowd that was gathering nearby, and I asked for saran wrap and Vaseline, sir.
And what would be the purpose of saran wrap and Vaseline?
I was going to try to seal the chest wound, sir.
Did anybody respond to your request?
Yes, sir.
Was that a civilian?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you describe that person at all?
Yes, sir.
How's that?
I would describe him as an Asian male, sir.
Did you ever get that person's name?
No, sir.
And what did the Asian male give to you to assist?
He gave me a plastic grocery bag, sir.
You recall what color it was?
I don't, sir.
What did you do after you were given the grocery bag?
I made the decision to try to seal the exit wound first, sir.
And what steps did you take in that regard?
I lifted Mr. Martin's body into a seated position by placing my right hand behind his head and my left hand in his midsection, and with the assistance of Officer Ayala, raised him to a seated position, sir.
And why were you looking for an exit wound?
It wouldn't have done any good for me to seal the chest wound if I didn't seal the exit wound as well, sir, so I decided to start there.
When you and Officer Ayala sat Trayvon Martin up, did you feel anything in Trayvon Martin's clothing?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
I felt a cold can, sir,
And where did you feel the cold can?
in his jersey pocket, sir.
Did the can feel empty or full?
It felt full, sir.
And when you say jersey pocket, describe that for the jury, what you mean.
Like a sweatshirt where you would put your hands into a pocket in the front, sir.
In the center?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you know whether or not the can that you felt, do you know whether or not that was in a bag when you felt it?
I do not know, sir.
Did you examine the can in any fashion or remove it from his sweatshirt?
No, sir.
Why not?
It just wasn't on my list of priorities, sir.
All right. Did you find an exit wound to Trayvon Martin's body when you sat him up and searched for one?
No, sir, I did not.
So what did you do next?
I laid him back down on his back, sir.
Did you continue CPR after you laid him down?
Yes, sir, I did.
And was rescue called to that scene?
Yes, sir.
Did they respond?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did rescue take over the CPR efforts after they arrived?
Yes, sir.
What did you see the rescue personnel do to treat or assess Trayvon Martin?
I watched them hook up the leads of the EKG machine to Mr. Martin, sir.
All right. And was Trayvon Martin pronounced dead by rescue at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Were you present for that?
Yes, sir.
After Trayvon Martin was pronounced dead, did you or anyone else put anything over his body?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
I put an emergency blanket over Mr. Martin's body, sir.
And what was the purpose of that?
Well, one, it was respect for the deceased. Two, is to mitigate trauma that witnesses or family members may be exposed to if they arrived on scene. And then three was to preserve any physical evidence on the body, sir.
And when you say to preserve any physical evidence, do you mean in part because of the weather conditions?
Yes, sir.
It was still raining at the time?
Yes, sir.
When you placed the blanket over Trayvon Martin's body, did you move any evidence, to your knowledge, surrounding his body?
Not that I know of, sir.
All right. And while you were at the scene, did you collect or move any evidence yourself?
No, sir.
And why not?
Wasn't my job, sir.
All right. Your Honor, if I could ask that the lights be dimmed one more time. I have a couple of additional photographs. Thank you, Your Honor. State's Exhibit 20. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's Mr. Martin's body, sir.
And is that in the way it appeared after he was pronounced dead in your efforts and Officer Ayala's efforts at CPR?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant, I'm going to circle an object up here on the left hand of the screen with my red laser. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
It's a CPR mask, sir.
All right. Is that the mask we referred to earlier that you were later provided when performing CPR?
Yes, sir, it is.
States 21, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And is that a close-up shot of Trayvon Martin,
Yes, sir, it is.
particularly his face?
Yes, sir.
Again, in the top left-hand corner, is that the breathing mask that you referred to earlier?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. States 28, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is that?
It's a gunshot wound, sir.
And states 6, do you recognize that?
It's definitely a picture of the retreat at 10 Lakes, sir. It looks like it's, the orientation is towards the south, sir.
All right. Can you see, despite the rain, can you see the blanket that was covering Trayvon Martin's body in that photograph?
Yeah, I've got it now, sir. I see it.
All right. Would you circle it with your laser pointer? And you're circling an area that's actually behind a raindrop.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And then state 7, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
In that photograph, does the blanket in Trayvon Martin's body underneath appear?
Yes, sir.
And again, would you circle that just for the members of the jury? All right. States number 17, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Is that how Trayvon Martin's body appeared after you placed the medical blanket on top of it?
Yes, sir.
And states 13. There's an evidence marker 3. Does that appear to be like the type of grocery bag or the grocery bag that you received from the Asian male to seal the wound?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you may raise the lights. Thank you. Sergeant Raimondo, did you have any further contact or involvement with the defendant after Trayvon Martin was pronounced dead?
No, sir.
And due to the nature of the call, a gunshot involving a death, were other units called to the scene, such as investigators and crime scene technicians?
Yes, sir.
And did those people respond to the scene?
Yes, sir.
When they responded, did they take over the investigation of the case?
Yes, sir.
And is that standard procedure in a case involving a death?
Yes, sir.
Did that essentially end your involvement with the case?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Cross.
Thank you. I may want to grab some of these. Can I just do them here, or if I want to use it, just use yours? Afternoon, officer. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Doing well. You've been involved in law enforcement, did you say 14 years?
17 years total,
17?
sir.
And before that was Marine Corps?
Yes, sir.
So yours has been then a life of service since you were late teen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in the Marine Corps, did you involve yourself in any military police?
No, sir.
Okay. Started law enforcement then after you came out of the Marine Corps?
Yes, sir.
And tell me again what you did in order to prepare to become a cop?
I attended the police academy, sir, and I continue with my professional development, and then my academic studies, sir.
And I understand your academic studies included getting a degree in criminology.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why did you want to become a cop?
I come from a family of law enforcement officers, sir.
Okay. Any other reason personally why you want to become a law enforcement officer?
Yeah, I think that we all want to make a difference in our communities, sir.
How do you make that difference?
I think that you do what you can when you can, and you just try to influence the audience that you have in front of you.
Has that been rewarding for you?
Very rewarding, sir.
Enjoy doing what you do?
Very much, sir.
I know that there have been, well, with lawyers more than cops, so I'll start with that, but that there are times when you're not as respected as a profession as others might think you should be. Have you heard of those concerns about law enforcement?
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. I just didn't know if you had any experience with people not respecting law enforcement as much as you think they should.
I'm just going to pose a relevance objection.
What's the relevance?
I'm just talking about his history and law enforcement experience for 17 years being in the Marine Corps. I think it's relevant to see how he's devoted his life as a police officer.
Well, you've already asked that. The question that you've asked that's been objected to is sustained.
Thank you. Intend to continue being a cop, I presume, yes?
I hope so, sir.
Okay. Just to take a moment, if I can work this right, to go back. Your Honor, if you might dim the lights, please. start here. I think you've identified the location of retreat view, correct? And if
Yes,
you would,
sir.
just again, if we're looking at that, if you could then identify what that complex is just to the, for record purposes, we're looking at State's Exhibit 2, the complex as we're looking at the photograph to the left.
Are you talking about here, sir?
Yes, sir. Are you familiar with that subdivision?
I want to say that it's maybe Colonial Town Park. I'm
Colonial?
not sure, sir.
Yes. And what is that?
It's another housing complex, sir.
Okay. Now going a little bit further to the left of that, if you would, that little area that looks almost like it has a couple of ponds in it. Do you know what that is?
I'm not sure we're looking at the same spot, sir. Are you talking about in here, sir?
Yes, sir. Is that yet another complex?
Yes, they've changed the name of it, sir, and I don't know what the name change is, but yes, sir, it is another housing area.
Okay. Now let's go to the far left where that little yellow push pin marker is. Do you know that to be the area where the 7-Eleven is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you were driving a car from the 7-Eleven back to Retreat View Circle, which way would you go?
I would go north on Reinhardt, and then I would go east on Oregon, sir.
Would you mind just tracking that with your laser?
I would go north on Reinhardt, and then east on Oregon into the retreat at Twin Lakes, sir.
And if you were walking and wanted to take the quickest route, which way would you go?
I really don't know what the pedestrian areas in that particular area are, sir. So not knowing that, I would probably take the same route on foot.
Okay. Let's focus then your attention to that second subdivision, Colonial, that we talked about. If you would put the laser just right there, and right above that, that one looks like right above it, that looks like a path right there.
Yes, sir.
Do you know that to be a walking path through that area?
I don't know it to be a walking path, sir.
Thank you. And again, this is Retreat View area itself, right?
Yes, sir.
Retreat at Twin Lakes. And I think you identified that you came in what is on the top and sort of came around. Thank you. Now, this is a picture you identified as sort of showing the lighting conditions that night, correct?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 5. Of course, this photograph is even a touch lighter in the foreground because it has the flash activated, does it not?
Yes, sir. I would agree with that.
So it would actually be as dark in the foreground as it is in the background, but for the flash?
Yes, sir.
And that was the conditions when you got there on scene just moments after the event?
Yes, sir.
Similarly with this, we can see Trayvon Martin's body only because it is illuminated with a flashlight.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, would the body be in a similar darkness as the area outside the focus of the flashlight?
Yes, sir.
Now, this was the condition and the positioning of the body precisely as it was when you first saw it, correct?
Yes, sir. It looks very similar.
It had not been moved yet, correct?
Sir, I don't know when that picture was taken.
Okay, well, let me ask it this way. It was you and Officer Ayala who actually turned the body over for CPR purposes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the feet and the location of the feet, that was the position they were in when you came upon the body?
I really don't know, sir. I mean, could you be more specific?
I'm just curious. I thought you had testified earlier that when you reviewed State's Exhibit 76, you stated that that was the exact position the body was in when you came upon it.
That is how the body appeared to me when I arrived, sir. I didn't make note of the position of the feet exactly.
Yes, sir. Did you get any information from any other law enforcement officer that the body had been moved at all?
No, sir.
And you were the first person, along with Officer Ayala, to actually move it for CPR purposes?
Yes, sir.
And I think you testified that when you came upon Trayvon Martin's body, you did not get a pulse whatsoever?
No, sir.
As best you can tell at that point, he was already deceased?
I'm not qualified to call him deceased, sir, but definitely in need of services.
And this was the body as it was after the attempt at CPR?
Yes, sir.
As we look at the upper clothing part, is that the pouch area in the front was now on his waist that you found what you said was a cold can in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was actually inside that pouch?
Yes, sir.
And I think you identified this as a gunshot wound. Did you actually view this gunshot wound
Yes, sir.
on the body?
Yes, sir.
Looking for the area to cover up, and I think you said because there was air escaping,
Yes, sir.
necessary for proper CPR.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, this is a picture with the yellow blanket in the distance, but also a photograph which, without the flash, would have been much darker, correct?
Yes, sir.
The entire area back then was as dark as it is in the background.
Yes, sir.
Similar with this as well.
Yes, sir.
And again, we're looking at State's Exhibit 7. Thank you, Your Honor. Do you know how long Trayvon Martin's body was exposed to the rain before you covered it with a blanket?
No, sir, I don't.
Can you give us an approximation,
Yes, sir, I could.
if you would?
I would estimate it was probably 15 minutes, sir.
Okay. If I might have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions?
Thank
And I
you.
may have misspoke. I may have identified an exhibit as 76 when it was 77, just for record purposes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any redirect?
Just very briefly. Sergeant, addressing that approximate 15-minute period when you arrived until the time that Trayvon Martin's body was covered by you with the blanket, can you describe for the jury the nature or intensity of the rainfall? Was it a light rain? Was it a driving rain, a downpour, or what?
As I recall, sir, it was just drizzling.
Thank you, sir. No, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. May Sergeant Raimondo be excused?
He may.
Okay, thank you very much. You may be excused. Please call your next witness.
Diana Smith.
solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am. If you please tell the members of the jury your name.
Diana Smith
And how are you employed?
with the Sanford Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Sanford Police Department?
A little over 6 years.
And your position with the police department is what?
I'm a crime scene technician.
And can you describe for the jury what are your duties and responsibilities as a crime scene technician?
I respond to crime scenes to document, photograph, collect, and preserve evidence.
And how long have you been a crime scene detective or technician with the Sanford Police Department?
Almost 6 years.
All right. And what was your position before becoming a crime scene technician?
I was an evidence technician.
All right. And tell them what an evidence technician does.
They transport, intake, and inventory evidence.
Can you give the jury a brief summary of your training and education that you've completed to prepare you for your duties as a crime scene technician?
On-the-job training. I also have certifications in crime scene processing, crime scene response, reconstruction of shooting incidences, DNA analysis, death investigation, and blood pattern analysis.
All right. Do you also attend continuing education courses to stay current in the field of crime scene investigations?
Yes, I do.
Can you estimate for the jury, please, the approximate number of scenes that you've processed in your 5+ years as a crime scene technician?
It's been about a few hundred.
Incidentally, are you related to a Sanford Police Department patrol officer named Tim Smith?
Yes, I am.
How so?
He's my husband.
Do you and Officer Smith, Officer Tim Smith, occasionally have the opportunity to respond to the same calls?
Yes, we do.
And how does that happen?
My on-call rotation sometimes lands on his rotation.
All right. Let me turn your attention then, please, to the evening of Sunday, February 26, 2012. Were you working on that evening?
Yes, I was.
And on that evening, did you respond to the scene of a shooting at the Retreat at Twin Lakes complex?
Yes, I did.
Is that located here in Sanford, Seminole County, Florida?
Yes, it is.
And approximately what time did you arrive on the scene?
About 7:55 p.m.
Had the scene been taped off and secured by patrol officers when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
And what were the weather conditions like when you arrived?
We were experiencing intermediate showers.
Had it been raining prior to your arrival at the scene?
Yes, it had.
When you arrived at the scene, did you speak with Sanford Police Department patrol officers that had arrived before you?
Yes, I did.
And what is the purpose of that?
To brief me on the scene.
Was the victim's body still located at the scene when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
And did you later learn that person's name to be Trayvon Martin?
Yes, I did.
Did Trayvon Martin's body have a yellow medical blanket on top of it when you arrived?
Yes, it did.
Did you conduct a walkthrough of the scene?
Yes, I did.
And explain for the members of the jury, what is a walkthrough? What do you mean by that?
The officers that are briefing me on the scene would usually walk me through and point out any type of evidence or anything that they've noticed that I need to be aware of before I start working the scene.
Yeah, I'll practice that moment. Officer Smith, I apologize. You did conduct a walkthrough in this case.
Yes, I did.
All right. After completing the walkthrough, what's the first thing you did as far as processing the scene?
Started my photographs.
And did you touch or move anything before you started your photography?
No, I did not.
And why do you start with photography?
So that I can present in my photographs the way the scene was presented to me.
Was it still raining when you were taking photographs?
Yes, it was.
And in fact, do some of your photographs capture the rain at the scene?
Yes, they do.
Do you photograph the scene in stages?
Yes, I do.
And explain to the jury what you mean by that.
My first photographs are overalls using no markers, and then I go back in and get closer with markers.
And tell them what you mean by markers.
Object markers, usually with a number or a letter.
And what are the purpose of placing markers by items of evidence?
In relevance to photographing the location to one another.
All right. Did you later collect the items that you identified with the markers?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did you measure the scene and the items within the scene prior to the collection of those items?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a diagram of the scene to document the location of the physical evidence relative to other pieces of evidence into the body of Trayvon Martin?
Yes, I did.
And were your measurements and scene diagram later provided to a member of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in order to construct a computerized rendition of the crime scene?
Yes, it was.
And have you seen the computerized renditions of the crime scene in this case?
Yes, I did.
And do those renditions fairly and accurately depict the crime scene and the layout and location of the physical evidence at the scene?
Yes, it does.
All right, John, if I may approach the witness.
Yes, you may.
Let me show you first Officer 139. And just outside the presence of the jury, you recognize that?
Yes, could you
Yeah,
please?
Judge, I believe these were previously stipulated to. But I'm just showing to you again. 139, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
All right, and does that fairly and accurately depict the layout of the scene and the evidence within the scene when you arrived?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And states 140, is that just sort of a shot of the same area but from further out?
Yes, it is.
And does it include more of the buildings in the complex than the State's Exhibit 139?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, may she step down
Yes, you may.
so I can publish this?
How would the court refer the counsel be positioned?
If you could go over by that podium, and you should be able to see.
Your Honor, does the quorum have a pointer somewhere, some sort of extended pointer that we can use?
No, I do not.
Madam Clerk, do you have? No? Okay. You can come on over. Officer Smith, let me put you on this side. Keep your voice loud enough so the court reporter can hear you. And if you would, states 139, just take the members of the jury through the item markers and the legend and just kind of refer back and forth, starting with item number 1.
Item number 1 is right here.
And let me get you to try to stand back just a little bit, just so this last juror can see. Thank you so much.
Item number 1 is up here.
All right, and that's depicted as what in your legend?
The keys and flashlight.
All right, and items 2 and 3?
Items 2, items 3, plastic bags.
All right, and 4?
Item 4, first aid kit.
To your knowledge, do you know anything about how that first aid kit got there,
I do not.
or where it came from? All right, item number 5.
Item number 5,
is what?
I believe that is a flashlight.
All right, and is that indicated on the legend?
Yes, it is.
All right, and item 6, or marker 6, I should say, depicts what?
Our victim's body.
All right, and do you have that in, is that identified in somewhat of a body, a depiction of a body?
Yes, it is.
All right, and item 7,
Item 7, a cell phone.
and 8.
Item 8, cartridge case.
Let me ask you to stay right there if you would. Yara, could you dim the lights? And Yara, would you inquire of the jurors if they can still see the screen without in the way? They can't, all right?
Can everybody see the screen? Yes,
Officer
okay.
Smith, let me get you to come stand over where I am. Again, please keep your voice up, because we don't have a microphone, and the court still needs to hear you. State's Exhibit 3. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
All right, and can you show the members of the jury, first of all, is that an accurate depiction of the scene and the lighting conditions, other than the flash, of course, when you took the photographs?
Yes, it is.
All right. Can you show the members of the jury on States 139, the diagram, where that photograph is taken from?
I do believe it's taken from this angle here, going this way, so that would be west to east.
All right. States Exhibit 4, what's depicted in that photograph?
This is showing south. We are going to be standing on the other side of this T, right about here, looking down the T on the sidewalk.
All right. And I'm going to circle in red. Is that the blanket that covered Trayvon Martin's body for perspective?
Yes, it is.
All right. States Exhibit 5, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And show the members of the jury on the diagram then where that photograph, what that depicts.
If I'm not mistaken, that is standing right here at the T, looking down towards object marker number 4.
All right, and is the kind of the dog walk container or receptacle depicted in that photograph?
Yes, it is.
And show the members of the jury where that would be on the diagram.
I do believe it's this marking right here.
States Exhibit 6, from what angle or view is that?
This is looking at the corner behind 2861 and looking down the T.
And again, do we see Trayvon Martin's body in the blanket depicted in the photograph actually behind a raindrop?
Yes, yes you do.
All right, State 7, what angle or view is that?
This is now standing on the T looking south, going this way.
And States 8?
Standing right behind object marker number 1, also looking south.
All right, and I'm going to circle that on the screen. When you refer to the markers, that's what you're referring to?
That's correct.
All right. And then States 9, is that a close-up then of exhibit number 1?
Yes, it is.
And I believe that's depicted on the diagram and from your testimony as the keychain with the flashlight on.
That is correct.
States 10, do we see item marker number 1 and then also item marker number 2 in that?
Yes, you do.
All right. And States 11, tell the jury what's depicted in that photograph.
This photo is taken from right over here, looking at object markers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
All right. This is obviously 2. is this 3 right here?
Yes, it is.
All right, and in the background, is that 4 up there?
Yes, it is.
All right, and then 5 and 7 are more visible, and 6 actually depicts the body, correct?
That is correct.
All right. States 12, what's depicted there?
Plastic bag, object marker number 2.
And states 13,
Plastic bag, object marker number 3.
and states 14.
First aid kit, object marker number 4.
States 15,
Showing relationship, object marker number 5 and 7 to object marker number 6.
all right, and 6 is the body. Remind the jurors what are objects 5 and 7.
Object marker 5 is a flashlight, and 7 is a cell phone.
State 16, is that a close-up of the flashlight by marker 5?
Yes, it is.
In state 17, does that simply depict the marker 6 in Trayvon Martin's body?
Yes, it does.
States 18 is what?
Object marker number 7, cell phone.
And states 19.
An Arizona T-can.
States 20, is that how Trayvon Martin's body appeared when the yellow medical blanket was removed?
Yes, that is correct.
And states 21, is that a close-up of Trayvon Martin's face?
Yes, it is.
And states 22.
Showing a photo pin.
Was that pin collected as part of your work in this case?
Yes, that is correct.
States 23,
Documenting a watch.
as well as Mr. Martin's left hand, wrist,
That is correct.
and states 24,
Documenting our victim's right hand.
and states 25. Is that a depiction of Trayvon Martin's body just from the other side now?
That is correct.
And states 26, does that more clearly capture the photo pin on Trayvon Martin's sweatshirt?
Yes, it does.
States 27, what's depicted there?
That is a possible projectile hole.
And in that photograph, has the gray outer sweatshirt been lifted up to expose a second sweatshirt?
Yes, it has.
And states 28, what's that?
That is a possible gunshot wound.
States 29, in that photograph, has the body of Trayvon Martin been already removed?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, and I'm going to circle a little yellow arrow, if you will, on the screen. Is there a purpose for that arrow?
Yes, there is.
And is that something that you or another member of the police department placed in the grass?
Yes, that is correct.
And what's the purpose of the arrow?
To show relationship between object marker 6 to the cartridge case.
All right, and states 30, does that depict the cartridge case with the arrow?
Yes, it does.
All right, and if I circle it, is it right at the end of the pointed end of the arrow?
That is correct.
And it doesn't appear that the cartridge case is actually standing on end as it fell in the grass.
Yes, it does.
States 8, was that the marker that you used to depict the shell casing?
Yes, it is.
All right, and states 32, I'm sorry, Judge, I think I said states 8, I meant states 31, the prior photograph. States 32 depicts what?
A measurement of a cartridge case.
All right, states 33, show the members of the jury on the diagram, if you would, where that photograph was taken from.
This was taken from the front of this residence here, 1221 and 1211.
All right, and states 34.
showing the front of the residence to 2861 and 2851.
And states 35.
Showing 2861 out front again.
All right, let me back up for just a moment. States 21. Do you see in that photograph depicted earphones or headphones in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
All right, and are those depicted essentially to the right and above Trayvon Martin's head?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Let me catch up. States 36. Did you return the next day and take photographs in the daylight hours?
Yes, I did.
And that would have been on the 27th.
That is correct.
Okay. Is the ground and the sidewalk still wet in that photograph?
Yes, they are.
All right, and show the members of the jury again on states 139, the diagram, where that photograph depicts the angle or view.
It's going to be right over here. That will be west, on the west side.
All right. Shooting from west to east.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. In states 37.
It's going to be right here, following the T.
And again, the dog receptacle, dog package receptacle is in there.
It's right here.
States 38.
This is standing right above the sidewalk, looking down the T, going south.
And states 39.
This would be over in this area where object marker number 3 and 4 are roughly.
And states 40.
And that would be on the east side looking west.
States 41.
Also on the east side looking west.
States 42.
That would be the back patio of 2861 here.
And states 43. What area is depicted in that photograph?
You're looking right behind object marker number 4, which is here, looking north.
And states 44.
This would be right over by object marker number 5 and 6. And that would be looking east, going this direction.
Your Honor, would you raise the lights, please? Thank you. And just quickly, let me ask you, states 140, describe for them now how 140 relates to 139.
This is just a zoom out photo diagram of the previous exhibit. It just shows relationship to more of the buildings.
All right. Officer, or the deputy, or give me a hand with this. We'll move that. All right. Your Honor, may she stand down while we publish some exhibits?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Officer Smith. States 148, tell the members of the jury what it is and how you recognize it.
This would be the Arizona toucan shown in the photographs.
And how do you recognize it as the same?
It appears to be the same, and also the original packaging is attached to it.
All right, could you just kind of hold that up for them a little bit closer and maybe turn it around so that they can, there you go. All right, and when you arrived, was that on top of the yellow medical blanket?
Yes, it was.
All right. In states 145, if you would, tell them how you recognize it and what it is.
This is the flashlight, which was object marker number 5 in the photographs.
And does that also bear the case markings from this particular case?
Yes, it does.
All right. States 146. What is that?
This is the cell phone. That was object marker number 7 in the photographs. Also has the original packaging.
And states 142 and 143. If you could hold those up together. What are those items?
Object marker number 2 and number 3, 2 plastic bags.
And do those also bear the original packaging that you would have put them in before you took them in the property room?
Yes, they do.
States 144. What is that?
The first aid kit, which is object marker number 4 in the photographs. Also,
And a pair of tweezers. All right, and was that also in the original packaging?
yes, it is.
States 150. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
$40.15,
And where did that come from?
collected from the victim's pocket.
All right. Let me show you next, states 149, that packaging. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And is that a composite exhibit? That is, it contains multiple items.
That is correct.
And are the items listed on the packaging itself?
Yes, they are.
And what items came from the packaging?
A red lighter, a photo button, bag of Skittles, and headphones.
All right. And is this the lighter that was originally in that package?
Yes, it is.
All right. And the photo button, is that the same?
Yes, it is.
All right. Package of Skittles.
Yes, it is.
And the headphones.
Yes, they are.
All right. States 141. Can you tell the members of the jury what that is?
This would be object marker number 1, the keys, the small flashlight.
You recall whether or not that flashlight was on when you arrived or when you collected it?
Yes, it was on.
And finally, states 147. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Object marker number 8, the cartridge case.
How do you recognize it to be the same from the scene?
Same caliber, same brand, and also it's attached to the original packaging.
All right. Officer Smith, you may resume your seat. Thank you very much. Officer Smith, did you process any of the items by any means other than photography?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did you do any of that while you were still at the scene?
No, I did not.
And why not?
The weather conditions would not allow me to.
Was Trayvon Martin's body removed from the scene?
Yes, it was.
And it was after that that you found the shell casing?
That is correct.
And how was the shell casing discovered?
By using a metal detector.
Did you search the scene in any way for blood evidence?
Yes, I did.
In what areas did you search?
I searched along the sidewalk, in between the buildings,
And how did you conduct that search?
using a flashlight.
You know, may I press the witness? Let me show you again, Officer Smith, states 139. Can you stand up for me? And just show the members of the jury generally what areas you searched for any blood evidence.
I walked along the T on the sidewalk, down the T, in the grass, and between all these buildings.
And you were using a flashlight.
That is correct.
All right. Did you, other than the area immediately surrounding the body, did you locate any blood at the scene?
No, I did not.
Did you locate any blood in the grass where the body was?
No, I did not.
And approximately how long were you at the scene that evening?
Approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes.
After leaving the scene, did you respond to the Sanford Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And about what time would you have arrived at the police department?
Approximately 11:15 p.m.
And again, this is still on February 26th.
That is correct.
All right. While at the station, did you take photographs of a person later identified to you as George Zimmerman?
Yes, I did.
You see that person in court this afternoon?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify where he's sitting or what he's wearing?
Over to my right, wearing a light colored jacket and a plaid tie.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
If I have Mr. Zimmerman, have somebody swap these batteries out. Was the defendant still at the scene at Retreat at Twin Lakes when you arrived?
No, he was not.
All right, so the first time you would have had contact with him would then have been at the police station?
That is correct.
When you photographed the defendant, did you have him do anything, clean himself up or position himself in any way, or did you just take photographs as he was?
As he was.
All right. States 45, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Judge. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the defendant when you came into contact with him at the police station?
Yes, it is.
All right. And States 46, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Is that a close-up of the defendant that you took at the police station?
Yes, it is.
States 47, is that a further close-up of the face of the defendant that you took that evening?
Yes, it is.
And States 48, yet a closer shot of the defendant's face?
That is correct.
All right, States 49, what's depicted in that photograph?
The shoes?
And did you essentially, in photographing the defendant, take shots literally from head to toe,
Yes, I did.
front and back?
That is correct.
All right. States 50 then, what does that depict?
Showing the jeans and the shoes.
And States 51?
The jacket, undershirt, and belt.
States 52?
The backside of the jacket, jeans and shoes.
All right. And States 53?
The lower portion of the jeans and the shoes.
States 54?
The lower portion of the jacket and the jeans.
And States 55?
The backside of the jacket.
States 56?
And the backside of Zimmerman's head.
States 57?
Just a close-up.
Of the back of his head?
That is correct.
And States 58?
Another close-up.
And States 59?
The backside of Zimmerman's hands.
States 60?
Zimmerman's right hand.
61?
Left hand.
62?
Palm of the right hand.
63?
Palm of the left.
And States 64?
Another front shot of his face.
And did you take several photographs of the defendant's head to preserve through photography any injuries that he may have had at the time?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, stage 65. What does that depict?
Showing possible blood.
And stage 66? Is that a shot of the right side of his head?
Yes, it is.
And stage 67, the left side of his face?
Yes, it is.
And stage 68, is that the left side of Mr. Zimmerman's head?
Yes, it is.
All right, stage 69, what's depicted there?
This is the top of his head.
And stage 70,
The right side.
from the top?
That is correct.
All right, and stage 71.
The right side.
And stage 72,
The left side.
stage 73,
The left side.
and stage 74.
The back.
Stage 75.
The right side.
There are no more photographs. Thank you. While you were at the police station, did you also collect the clothes that the defendant had on?
Yes, I did.
And did you get those clothes from the defendant or someone else?
I do believe directly from the defendant.
And how did you package the defendant's clothes?
I gave the defendant paper bags to put his clothing items in.
And did he do that?
Yes, he did.
All right. And what did you do with the defendant's clothes after you collected them?
They were packaged and put into evidence.
All right. Your Honor, may I have the witness step down,
Yes, you may.
if you would? If you approach here. And again, I'm going to need you to, you can stop right there. We'll bring it out to you. States 151, does that appear to be the jacket that you removed from the defendant or that he removed?
Yes, it does.
All right, other than perhaps some cutouts that have been done for forensic purposes, is that a fair and accurate depiction of the way it appeared at the time?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If you would just come over a little closer. I'm going to ask you if you recognize the packaging associated with States 151.
Yes, I do.
Does that bear the case markings and your markings from the collection in this case?
Yes, it does.
All right. Put those back in there. States 153. You recognize that to be the shirt that the defendant gave you that evening?
Yes, I do.
And again, would you just examine the packaging? Does it bear your markings, the case number, etc.?
Yes, it does.
And States 152, those appear to be the blue jeans that the defendant gave to you.
Yes, they do.
All right. If you would just confirm that through the packaging.
Yes, I do.
All right. You may resume your seat. Officer Smith, in your work in this case, did you process the defendant's firearm?
Yes, I did.
And where did you do that?
at the Sanford Police Department.
All right, and how did you come into possession of the defendant's gun?
I received it from Officer Timothy Smith,
And what kind of firearm was it?
a 9mm Kel-Tec.
Is that a semi-automatic firearm?
Yes, it is.
And had the gun already been secured, that is, unloaded when you received it?
Yes, it was.
Madam Clerk, may I have the exhibit? May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Deputy, could I ask you to examine States 154 to determine whether or not it's been secured with a gun lock?
Yes, it is.
All right. Would you hand that to Officer Smith?
Thank you.
Officer Smith, do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And was that the gun and holster that you received from Officer Tim Smith in connection with this case?
Yes, it is.
And do you recognize the packaging, the case number, again, et cetera?
Yes, I do.
Could you hold up the firearm for the jury, please? All right, and the red piece that you're holding in your left hand, is that the end of the gun lock to secure the firearm?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Did that gun lock, was that given to you when you received it from Officer Smith, or is that something that's been added later for courtroom security?
It's been added later.
All right. If you would then, please hold up the holster containing that exhibit. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. May we have the exhibit number, please?
I believe it's 154.
It is.
Thank you.
Officer Smith, did you wear gloves when you handled that firearm?
Yes, I did.
And why did you wear gloves?
To preserve any evidence?
Did you process the firearm in any way?
Yes, I did.
And how did you do that?
For which processing method?
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Oh.
In what ways did you process it?
I processed it for touch DNA and for latent prints.
All right. And when you say touch DNA, what do you mean?
I mean, it's touch DNA, meaning it's not like physical DNA, like the presence of blood. It's something that you may not be able to see.
All right. And how do you process an item for touch DNA?
Use a sterile swab with distilled water. You put that on the tip of the sterile swab. You swab the area for a few minutes, package it, and secure it.
All right. And did you do that with the firearm in this case?
Yes, I did.
And can you show the jury what areas of the firearm you processed for DNA?
Yes, I can. I processed the grip, which is on the back side, the trigger, and the back part of the slide here.
All right. And then what did you do with those swabs?
I submitted them into evidence.
And how many swabs did you collect from the firearm?
3 swabs.
All right. Did you also process the holster for touch DNA?
Yes, I did.
And did you do that in the same manner?
Yes, I did.
And how many swabs did you take from the holster?
Just 1.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Let me show you States 170. Ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The 4 swabs that I collected from item TS-1,
And how do you recognize it to be the same?
the object markers, my handwriting, and case number.
All right. You indicated that you also processed the firearm for latent prints tell the members of the jury which processing did you do first, that is the swabbing for DNA or the examination for latent prints?
I visually examined it for latent prints prior to swabbing for DNA. After swabbing for DNA, then I processed the rest of the firearm for latent prints.
Okay, why did you process it for DNA prior to using some physical component to process it for fingerprints?
The areas that were swabbed for DNA are less likely to have latent prints appear after processing them.
All right, and explain to the members of the jury, first of all, what is a latent print? What is meant by that?
A latent print is an impression that contains ridge detail.
And how is it that you're able to capture that or preserve that for future examination?
When you're using powders, it adheres to traces of fatty acids, amino acids, and proteins that are within latent prints.
And how do you use the powder to capture a latent print?
You take the latent brush, you put it in the powder, and you lightly brush the item.
And then what do you do? What's the next step?
And any areas of interest, then you take latent print tape, put it on the item, take it off, put it on a latent print card.
And do you mark the card in any way?
Yes, you do.
And how's that?
You mark it by the case number, the item number, what you're lifting the tape from, and draw a diagram.
And when you processed the firearm, in this case for latent fingerprints, were you able to make any lifts onto a card?
Yes, I was.
How many?
Just one.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Let me show you States 183. Ask if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The latent print card that I pulled from the firearm.
And how do you recognize it to be the same?
My case number, item number, and diagram.
Did you indicate on the latent card itself where the print was taken from the firearm?
Yes, I did.
And how did you do that?
I drew a diagram, circled the area.
All right. Your Honor, may she step down just briefly?
Yes, you may.
Officer Smith, if you join me over here. And again, keep your voice up, and so the court reporter can hear you, and show the members of the jury where on the firearm you took the latent print and how you depicted it on the card.
Here's a lift from the actual firearm. On the opposite side is my diagram and all the information, case number, item number, where it was lifted from.
Okay, and how is it depicted on the diagram where it was lifted from?
There is a circle drawn around it with an X in the middle of it.
All right, so hand that to me. You may resume your seat. Thank you. Officer Smith, so we're clear, is it your job once you lift or make a lift of a latent print, is it your job to analyze it to determine whether or not it's of any value or whether or not it can be compared to any individual?
No, it's not.
Whose job is that?
That would be a latent analyst.
In a similar manner, when you take a swab from DNA, are you the person who goes on to process that, or is that done by someone else?
That is done by somebody else.
All right. Did you also process in this case the Skittles bag that was shown earlier, as well as the larger black flashlight?
Yes, I did.
And did you swab them for DNA in the manner that you previously described?
Yes, I did.
And again, is that something then that you would turn over to an agency such as the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for analysis of any DNA that may be on there?
That is correct.
All right. Did you also process the larger flashlight, the black flashlight, for latent fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
How did you do that?
I fumed it and then used black powder.
And were you able to obtain any lifts when you processed the flashlight?
No, I did not.
All right. Did you process any other items in this case for latent lifts?
Yes, I did.
Specifically, did you process the 2 plastic bags that we saw earlier, the white one and the brown one, as well as the keys that were connected to the flashlight?
Yes, I did.
And how did you process those items for latent fingerprints?
They were fumed and processed with black powder or magnetic powder.
All right, and what is it that you mean when you say fumed?
Fuming is a method where we use super glue. We put the items in a chamber, we ignite the super glue. It creates a white gas, and the gas will adhere to traces of the fatty proteins that we discussed earlier. And it forms to the ridges, making the latent print a little bit more visible.
All right, and were you able to obtain any latent lifts from either of the plastic bags, the keys, or the flashlight?
No, I did not.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes,
States 169. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Are those the DNA swabs that you took from the Skittles packaging and the larger black flashlight?
Yes, they are.
All right. Let me turn your attention then to Tuesday, February 28th. Did you collect any evidence from the medical examiner's office on that date in connection with this case?
Yes, I did.
And when you collected those items, did you do anything to them? Did you process them in any way?
No, I did not.
Did you repackage those items in any way?
There might be a couple of them that I did.
All right. Was your goal essentially to transport those items from the security of the medical examiner's office to the property room with the Sanford Police Department?
Yes, that is correct.
I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, you may.
Let me show you States 164. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is the watch that the victim was wearing.
All right. And can you just hold that up for the members of the jury? As best you can. All right. And States 191, is that a item of evidence that you collected from the medical examiner's office?
Yes, it is.
And specifically, are those the tools, if you will, or sticks that were used to scrape fingernail scrapings from Trayvon Martin?
Yes, they are.
And is that something that you did yourself or something that the personnel at the medical examiner's office would have undertaken?
The personnel at the medical examiner's office.
All right. Let me show you States 186. And what is that?
This is the FTA card.
And is that otherwise commonly known as a blood spot stain card?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And was that also collected from the victim by the personnel at the medical examiner's office?
Yes, it was.
And States 165, what is contained in that exhibit?
This is the projectile.
Recovered from Trayvon Martin's body by the medical personnel at the medical examiner's office?
Yes, that is correct.
And you had mentioned earlier that you had made a diagram of the scene and then turned that over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for the computer renditions. Let me show you 168 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
Is that the diagram and legend to the diagram with measurements that you completed in this case?
Yes, it is.
And is that the same copy or exact copy of the original that you turned over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, it is.
Let's read those from there. Officer Smith, thank you for your time. Your Honor, that's all I have.
Thank you. Would this be a good time to take a break?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. If you'll please place your notepads face down on the chair and follow Corporal Debs back into the jury room. Okay, Officer Smith, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. That means you're allowed to walk around and get off the stand, but you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anybody, and that includes the lawyers. Thank you. Court will be in recess for 15 minutes.
We have an extra slide. There's a matter that Mr. Zimmerman needs to deal with.
Okay, we'll take 20 minutes. Please be seated. Are we ready to bring the jury back in? State? Okay, let's go ahead and bring them in.
Very present,
Please be seated. Mr. West, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, Officer Smith.
Afternoon.
Have you ever actually been on patrol with your husband? I understand that you're married to the first responding officer to the scene in this instance, Timothy Smith.
That is correct.
Which?
He is my husband.
Right. Have you ever, I'm just curious, have you ever been on patrol with him?
I've done ride-alongs before.
Well, I meant patrol as a police officer.
No, sir.
Any reason why? Does the department keep you from doing that on purpose?
I'm not a police officer.
What would the better title then be than officer? Sorry.
Crime scene technician.
Okay, is that your title at work, crime scene technician?
Yes, it is.
All right. Can I just call you Ms. Smith? Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. I want to talk a little about in general, and then we'll talk about some specifics. If there is a question I ask you that you don't know but you can figure out by looking at something, just say so, and we'll give you a chance to do that. If there's no way you can because you don't have the material available, say that too, and we'll move on. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
So you measure the scene prior to the collection of evidence,
That is correct.
and you record those measurements in notes, ultimately then on a diagram.
That is correct.
Could I then ask you for some measurements so you could tell me how far it is from certain points to other points so that we can get oriented as to the scene itself?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Marker number 1 is the key, the Honda key with the little flashlight on it. And marker 6 is where Mr. Martin's body was identified. Are you able to tell me roughly how far it is from marker 1 to marker 6?
No, sir.
Would referring to any of the diagrams or your sketch help with that?
No, sir.
Okay. Can you estimate it for me?
No, sir.
Okay. Who would be able to do that was connected in the case?
The FDLE personnel that did the total station.
Is that Ms. Orta?
Yes, I do believe so.
On your left are some diagrams. Is that what's been generated by the total station system?
Yes, that is correct.
And is that the work product of Ms. Orta?
Yes, it is.
So you didn't personally participate in generating those diagrams?
That is correct.
So whatever you could tell us about them would be what you remember from the scene or what somebody told you that she did?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any way you can look at that diagram? Is there a scale or something that would help identify the distances that I'm talking about from, say, marker 1 to marker 6?
No, there's not.
Did you take any measurements that night yourself?
Yes, I did.
And did you record them in a report of some kind?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do you have that available?
I do not have the sketch available, no, sir.
There was one of the exhibits seemed like it was drawings. I can maybe find the number, or if you recall. This is 168.
Thank you.
Is 168 your drawing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now that you have that in front of you, are you able to give me, was that designed from a fixed reference point?
From 2 fixed reference points.
All right, so that doesn't help you measure from one marker to the next?
That is correct.
Okay. So we then would have to go to the total station data to do that?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's no help at all. Sorry. if there's an exhibit with some swabs, other than the ones I have. From the crime scene standpoint, the measurements that you took from the fixed reference points were then designed so that with the total station data, you'd be able to identify specific measurements if asked later on.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. The photos, though, were photos that you took?
Yes, that is correct.
The exhibits that are in evidence here today are photos that you took there at the scene?
That is correct.
So you were there personally looking and identifying and photographing each of the exhibits and the markers where they were pictured here?
That is correct.
Okay. So you had a hands-on view of the actual evidence?
That is correct.
Marker number 1 is this this Honda key with the little flashlight. I think you said it was on. Was that something you witnessed or something somebody told you?
No, I witnessed it.
So apparently it had been on then prior to your arrival.
That is correct.
You didn't have any reason to think that anyone had tampered with the evidence?
No, I did not.
No reason to think that anyone had been picking up or handling any of the evidence prior to your arrival?
No, I did not.
I think you, your husband, Tim Smith, was the first responding officer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So your understanding was that he was on site very, very soon in these events.
That is correct.
So law enforcement took charge of the scene right away.
Yes, that is correct.
That's important for you, isn't it, later on, that the scene not be contaminated?
Yes, that is correct.
That all of the evidence that you collect actually be where you see it that it originally was?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you think that the only evidence that may have been moved, if you will, was Mr. Martin's body?
And the Arizona Tecan.
Was it your information that that had been in his clothing and removed by responding officers?
Or responding medical.
Sure. Okay. Mr. Martin's body was covered by that blanket that's been described when you got there. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And it remained in that condition until the arrival of the medical examiner investigator?
Other than photographs beforehand.
When in time did you take the photographs of Mr. Martin's body?
I don't recall if it was before the medical examiner's office arrived or when they arrived.
Might it have been in conjunction with them then?
Yes.
Wouldn't typically in that situation, if the medical examiner's investigator is there, that person might retrieve personal effects, for example, and give them to you as the crime scene tech.
That is correct.
Is that what happened here?
Yes, it is.
So as items from pockets, the money, the change, the lighter, etc., was removed from pockets, it would have been handed to you, logged in, and packaged?
That is correct.
And then it's likely that you took the photographs of Mr. Martin's body in conjunction with that process being done by the medical examiner's investigator?
Yes, that is correct.
You wouldn't have removed the blanket yourself to take photos prior to the medical examiner's investigator getting there, would you, typically?
Sometimes.
Did you in this case?
I don't recall.
In any event, there's nothing that deviated substantially from the protocol that you're used to in connection with these kinds of things.
That is correct.
You mentioned that you searched for blood on the sidewalk by walking the path with a flashlight. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you walked across two sides of the T?
That is correct.
Had anyone pointed out to you specific areas in which to look?
I don't believe so.
So you made just what you would usually do then, sort of a general pass in the vicinity to see if there was any obvious blood.
That is correct.
So you didn't do an exhaustive search, I take it?
Myself and several officers on scene did a very long search.
I meant for the blood. When you were walking down the sidewalk with the flashlight, the idea was to see if there was obvious blood?
Yes,
And it was raining,
that is correct.
and the event itself would have been passed by a couple of hours at least by this point?
It's possible.
There are chemicals that can be used by crime scene technicians that would react in the presence of blood. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You're familiar generally with how that works?
Yes,
In this instance, there were no chemicals used specifically on the sidewalk or anywhere else that might reveal the presence of blood.
that is correct.
When you went to the medical examiner's office in Volusia County to collect evidence, that included the clothing, I take it, that Mr. Martin was wearing on the evening of February 26th?
Yes, that is correct.
That's what you were told anyway,
Yes, that is correct.
right? You didn't open the packages or examine them in any way?
I believe so.
You made the comment, maybe it was in passing, about maybe you repackaged some things. What were you referring to, if you remember?
The FTA card, some standards that came back from the medical examiner's office.
Okay, not the clothing.
No, not the clothing.
As far as you know, you never opened the bag that contained either any of the clothing.
Yes, that is correct.
Did the clothing that you collected include Mr. Martin's pants?
I do believe so.
Have you seen them here in the courtroom?
I don't believe so.
Your Honor, could we check the record? Are the pants identified as an exhibit? I'm sorry. Ms. Smith, do you remember whether you retrieved the pants from the medical examiner?
I do believe I did.
Would you well, I guess you wouldn't recognize them, or would you, since you never saw them?
Only by the photographs.
All right. Could I show you what's been identified and entered, actually, as 157? Is that correct? Thank you. Could I get some help? Just right there, just show them to the visuals. Do you recognize those to be from the photographs, the pants that Trayvon Martin was wearing the night of February 26th and that you picked up from the medical examiner's office?
They appear to be similar.
And they are in evidence by stipulation, I believe.
Yes, they are, number 157.
Thank you. If we could talk a little bit about some of the forensic swabbing that you did. Do I understand that as the crime scene technician, you would take the physical item itself and use a swab like we have here and rub it on the item?
That is correct.
The idea would be if there's some kind of biological evidence there of some sort, it would be on the swab.
That is correct.
And when it's submitted for processing, is it just the swab that's sent to the lab?
Yes, it is.
So the physical item itself is not, for example.
That is correct.
So other than perhaps a general description of what item or what part of the item was being swabbed, there's no specific spot identified where on the item the swab was made.
That is correct.
For example, on the bag of Skittles, the candy, you would have made one swab from the entire package.
It's possible.
Well, I have Exhibit 169, and you could tell me if you made more than that.
Just one swab.
And likewise for the flashlight?
Also one swab.
Thank you. When you got to the scene, I think the flashlight is marker number 5, is that right?
I believe so.
It was not on, correct?
That is correct.
Was the purpose of the swab of the Skittles and the flashlight for touch DNA or some other kind of DNA?
I believe it was touch DNA.
Is that the same with the firearm?
Yes, that is correct.
And with the firearm, the swabs included one from the trigger, one from the grip, one from the slide, and then one from the holster. Is that correct? I'm referencing exhibit number 170.
Yes, that is correct.
You're not aware of any other swabs that you didn't include in evidence.
That is correct.
And likewise, then, would it have been the swabs that were tendered to FDLE rather than the firearm itself?
That is correct.
After you finished the swabbing is when you did the latent print examination, or did I get that backwards?
No, that is correct.
The procedure for making one of the swabs is using a swab with sterile water and then just wiping it on the surface.
Yes, that is correct.
And you wipe it, I suppose, as thoroughly as you can,
Yes, that is correct.
and then you're done.
That is correct.
Okay. And then that goes in the tube or whatever, and it goes off to the lab.
Yes, that is correct.
You aren't necessarily seeing anything.
Not all the time, no.
Or did you in this case on the firearm?
I do not believe so.
Can you tell me a little bit more about touch DNA?
In regards to collecting or in general?
Well, am I correct? I think you said basically that touch DNA is sometimes, if somebody touches a surface, it's possible to get DNA.
Correct, if enough skin cells are left behind.
So is that where it comes from?
The touch DNA?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So the basis of the DNA, the touch DNA, is that somebody touches an item and under some circumstances may leave behind some skin cells.
Yes, sir.
And if there are enough skin cells left behind, then sometimes at our state of the art, if you will, in the DNA analysis, there can be a result.
Yes, that is correct.
You don't do that analysis yourself.
No, I do not.
So the touch DNA based upon skin cells, for example, would be subject to being wiped off.
It's possible.
If somebody else handles the item, for example, they could wipe off whatever skin cells were there, correct?
It's possible.
When you say possible, you mean within your world, not just some sort of anything's possible, but you take that into account, don't you?
Yes.
So from a forensic standpoint, it's entirely possible that someone, well, first of all, someone could touch something and not leave enough skin cells behind for there to be any DNA analysis possible.
That is correct.
That's part, okay. And then even if they did, if somebody else handled it, they could wipe off the DNA that the other person left.
They could.
In fact, I suppose they could replace it with their own.
Or add to it.
Sure. Okay. So the idea of the touch DNA isn't that it's something that's on there for sure and stays no matter what happens.
Right, that is correct.
You got the firearm after it had already been taken into evidence, correct?
That is correct.
And you were provided it at some point at the Stanford Police Department?
That is correct.
So the firearm had been recovered at the scene and then provided at some later time to you?
That is correct.
If we could talk about the photographs for a minute that you took, not the the photos at the scene, but the ones at the Sanford Police Department. Are you able to tell us when it was that you took the pictures of Mr. Zimmerman?
It would have been sometime after 11:15 p.m. on the 26th.
Would that information be embedded in the data of the image?
I do believe it could be.
You used a digital camera, obviously.
Yes, I did.
So you record it on what, like an SD card or something, and then transfer it to an evidence file?
Yes, that is correct.
By the time you had gotten to the Sanford Police Department, Mr. Zimmerman had already been there several hours, is that right?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
He had already been provided access to a bathroom to clean himself up.
That I don't know about.
Did you ever see the pictures of him at the scene?
I honestly don't recall.
You, though, took pictures of him as you saw him somewhere between 11:15 and, we'll say, midnight, for example.
Yes, that is correct.
Is that pretty standard in your work as well?
Yes, it is.
If you have an individual in custody that was involved in an incident, it's not uncommon for you simply to document their condition by taking a number of photographs.
That is correct.
And you, as Mr. Guy suggested, you would want to get sort of a head-to-toe view.
Yes, that is correct.
In this instance, Mr. Zimmerman's injuries were on his face and head.
That is correct.
Could we display some of the photos, please? May I get some assistance there? I can provide the exhibit number, I think. Sure. Thank you. Are you able to see the exhibit number in the right-hand corner of the photo, Ms. Smith?
Yes, I am.
All right. I'll back up to a point where I think these start. We're looking at image number, State Exhibit 66. That's a picture you took, correct?
That is correct.
And you see that sort of lump on the top right of his head?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, and you saw it that night too, right?
Yes, I did.
67 shows blood dripping behind Mr. Zimmerman's left ear, is that correct?
That is correct.
'68 is of the left side of his head. Do you see that raised area above his ear?
Yes, I do.
And did you see it that night?
Yes, I did.
This is a better angle. Do you see the left side of his head there? You see that big lump on the left side of his head above his ear?
Yes, I do.
And did you see it that night?
Yes, I did.
How about on the top, on the right side of his head? Do you see that lump on the top of his head?
Yes, I do.
The top right side, and you saw it that night as well.
That is correct.
Is that a better picture of the lump on the right side?
Yes, it is.
And you can see just a bit on the back of Mr. Zimmerman's head. It looks like there's a lump there. Did you see that too?
Yes, I did.
This would be of his right side again, closer to the front. You see that lump?
Yes, I do.
And you see the punctate type abrasions in the temple area.
Yes, I do.
And you saw them that night too.
That is correct.
Likewise, on the left side of his head, you see similar abrasions?
Yes, I do.
And just one more. This is the back of Mr. Zimmerman's head in exhibit number 74. You see the lacerations?
Yes, I do.
You saw them that night as well, I take it.
Yes, I did.
And you see the lumping? You see the lumps around the abrasions and in general on the back of his head?
Yes, I do.
And you saw them like that as well that night, correct?
That is correct.
May I have just a moment, Judge?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll return to this, please. I'd like the item second.
Thank you. Can you redirect, Mr.
Yes,
Guy?
ma'am.
Yes, you may.
Let me show you states 149 and 150. Will you explain to the members of the jury how you work with personnel from the medical examiner's office in removing items from a victim's body, their person?
They would go through the pockets, collect anything that is out of the pockets, and return those over to me so that I can collect and put them into evidence.
And why is it that you don't just go through a victim's pockets yourself and start pulling things out?
We need consent from the medical examiner's office to do so.
Does the medical examiner's office actually have custody of a deceased person before and when they get there?
Yes, that is correct.
So you have to get authorization from them to manipulate the body or go through the clothing?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And the items in the composite, the earphones or the earplugs, the lighter, the photo button, and the Skittles, were those items that were removed by medical examiner personnel and then furnished to you?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. If you would look at the screen, States Exhibit 22, the button appears in that photograph, does it not?
Yes, it is.
All right. And I'm going to circle a part here. Does that appear to be the edge of the Skittles bag?
Yes, it does.
And that would still be in the center pocket of Mr. Martin's hooded sweatshirt?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Your Honor, that's all I need the lights for. Thank you. And when you went to the medical examiner's office to collect other items in the case, did you also collect Trayvon Martin's clothes?
Yes, I do believe so.
All right. Your Honor, may I have her step down?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Mantoux,
Yes,
assist
sir.
me. Somebody's. You previously identified Mr. Martin's pants?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize this exhibit? And Mr. Manta, if you'd call out the number for me.
States 155.
You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what does that appear to be?
The sweatshirt?
Let me sit this down for a second. Could I just get you to confirm that with the packaging as to what that was?
Yes, that would appear to be the same.
All right. I can get you to stay there for one more minute. Mr. Manta, will you call out that numbered exhibit if you get a chance?
States 156.
All right. You recognize that as being the undergarment or under sweatshirt that Mr. Martin, that you collected from the medical examiner's office?
Yes, it does.
All right. And will you confirm that also with the packaging?
Yes, it is.
You may resume your seat. Thank you. Do you have your report with you?
Yes, I do.
Could I get you to refer to page 2 of that? You were asked a question about the time that you took the photographs of the defendant at the Sanford Police Department, and I'd ask you to refer to your report and tell the members of the jury whether or not you can narrow down the time from when you arrived until the next time that you registered as a way of narrowing down when you took the photographs.
On 1/26/2012 at 23:15, which would be 11:15 p.m., is when I responded to the Sanford Police Department.
And what did you do when you got there?
I took the photographs of Mr. Zimmerman's injuries.
All right, to your memory, did you do anything else before you took the photographs?
No, I don't believe so.
And what's the next time recorded in your report?
2/27/2012,
At what time?
12:35 p.m.
All right, so that's 35, is that 35 minutes after midnight or is that the next morning?
That's the next morning.
All right. You were asked about the search for blood in the case. Were you assisted when you searched for blood?
Yes, I was.
By whom?
A few of the officers on scene.
And were those officers using flashlights?
Yes, they were.
And were you using a flashlight?
Yes, I was.
Did you see any blood on the sidewalk in the area that you searched?
No, I did not.
To your knowledge, didn't any of the other officers see blood on the sidewalk that was searched?
Hearsay.
Sustained.
Were you notified of any other blood at the scene?
No, I was not.
Let me just ask you one more thing. You notify me of approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Let me just hand you these real quick. 143 and 142. You talked about processing those bags. Is there any residue or effects present on those bags when you were processing them?
Yes, there is.
And what's that?
black colored residue.
All right, can you just kind of hold that up from where you are and just show that to members of the jury? So the white bag has some discoloration, makes it appear somewhat gray,
Yes, that is correct.
and the brown bag the same?
Yes, that is correct.
And that discoloration would be an artifact from your processing those bags for latent prints?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Your Honor, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anything further?
Just one moment.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Nothing further.
Thank you very much. May Technician Smith be excused?
She may.
Thank you very much. You are excused. Call your next witness, please.
They would call Salim Bahador.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Celine Bahador, Selene Bahador.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
I work for a hospital.
Okay. And you work there as an IT analyst.
Yes.
Have you been working there since 2004?
Yes.
Are you married, ma'am?
No.
Do you have any children?
No.
I'm not going to ask you for your current address, but do you currently live in Seminole County, Florida?
Yes.
How long have you lived in Seminole County, Florida?
9 years.
And has that been since about 2004?
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
Philadelphia.
And did you go to college in Philadelphia?
Yes.
Where did you go to college there?
Temple University.
Tell us briefly about your education background. What kind of degree did you get there?
I have a bachelor's degree in health information management.
I want to draw your attention back to last year, 2012, specifically to February of 2012. Were you living at that time at 2841 Retreat View Circle in Sanford, Seminole County, Florida?
Yes.
Back in February of 2012, how long had you been living at 2841 Retreat View Circle?
4 years.
Okay. And did you live there with anyone?
My sister and my niece.
Okay. Is your sister older or younger than you?
Older.
And your niece is about how old?
13 at the time.
Okay. And your niece, how is she related to you? Is she your sister's daughter or is she another niece through another family member?
Sister's daughter.
I want to focus, if we could, on the evening of Sunday night, February 26, 2012. Were you home at that address at 2841 Retreat View Circle?
Yes.
And was anyone home with you that night?
Yes, my sister, her friend, my niece, her friend, and my sister.
Okay. So your sister and then your niece and your niece's friend?
Yes.
Okay. Where you were living at that time in February, is that a townhouse?
Yes.
Or a townhome?
Yes.
Can you briefly tell us about the townhome? Is it upstairs, downstairs?
It's bi-level, yes.
Okay. And are the bedrooms upstairs?
Yes, 3 bedrooms upstairs.
Okay. Is there a common backyard that you all have access to?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the access to the backyard, is there also a porch in that residence?
Yes.
Do you have a sliding back door?
Yes.
Is the porch that is in back of that residence enclosed or is it just open?
It's enclosed.
And how is it enclosed, ma'am?
It's enclosed with,
Is it like a screened in or
it's
is it
screened
glass?
in with a door.
Okay. Now, at around 7:10 p.m. that Sunday evening, what were you doing?
I was in the kitchen.
Okay. I neglected to ask you, the kitchen, am I safe to assume that is downstairs?
Yes, downstairs in the rear.
Okay. And so if you walk in the front of that residence, is there like a foyer and then like a dining room or living room area and then the kitchen would be to the rear?
Yes.
Is the living room area also adjoining in terms of going out to the sliding glass door?
Yes.
Okay. In that kitchen, is there a window in the kitchen?
Yes.
And is the sliding glass, is it a glass door in terms of you can actually see through it?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned your sister and your niece's friend were home that evening. In terms of the time that I'm asking you about, you mentioned you were downstairs in the kitchen. Did you know where your sister was?
She was upstairs. I don't know where.
Okay. And do you know where your niece and her friend were?
Yes, they were in my niece's room, which faces the front of the home.
Now, that evening at that time, back in February of 2012, was it dark already outside around 7:10 p.m.?
Yes.
And in terms of the weather conditions, can you tell us if it had been raining or not?
It was raining.
Okay, can you tell us in terms of, was it like pouring rain, was it intermittent or what?
It was intermittent. Around 7, it was still likely raining.
Okay. At some point, did you hear a noise outside?
Yes.
Okay, and when I say outside, in terms of your residence, was it in the back or was it in the front?
It was in the rear.
Okay. And if you could, as best you can recall, the noise that you heard, can you describe that to the jury, please?
It was not clearly distinguishable, but it sounded like no or That's what it sounded like.
And when you said it sounded, the noise like no, like N-O?
Yes.
Or ooh, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also hear some kind of movement outside in the back of your residence?
Yes.
Okay, can you describe that to the jury, please?
It sounded like running from left to the right in the rear pathway.
Okay. And when you say from left to right, if I were in your residence and I was looking outside from the porch, are you talking about from the left to the right? If you were
Yes.
looking straight out into the backyard?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say it sounded like running, what do you mean by that?
It sounded like something hitting the concrete. It sounded like running.
Okay. Could you tell at that time whether it was an animal, whether it was a person?
Just from listening, no.
Okay. And could you tell that whether it was one animal or one person, or whether there was more than one animal or one person?
No.
Okay. But it was definitely, if you were looking at the back from left to right, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you say from left to right, are we talking about from the left of the back of your residence,
Yes.
going across the back of your residence towards the right, towards the T, I guess they call there?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of hearing that noise of some type of running, and also the word or something that it sounded to you like no, were you able to, did you look outside at that time?
I looked out the window, but I couldn't see anything.
And why could you not see anything?
Because from looking out the window, you have an obstructed view. You really can't see further down. You can just see right across or a little further down. But
Right. Did you end up moving from where you were in the kitchen window to another part of your residence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And where did you move from the kitchen window? Where did you move to?
The sliding glass doors.
Okay. And in terms of if I were looking in your residence, the kitchen, would that have caused you to move, if you were looking out to the back, would that have caused you to move to the right of your residence?
Yes.
Okay. If you could, when you moved to the sliding glass door, did you end up looking outside at that time?
Yes.
And if you could, describe to the jury what you saw at that time.
I saw what looked as figures and arms flailing.
Okay. Figures, meaning more than one figure?
Yes.
Okay. And flailing, if you could describe that to the jury when you say flailing arms, what do you mean by that? Actually arms moving? You tell us as best you can what you described.
It looked like arms moving. That's
Okay.
what it looked like.
All right. Did it look like two individuals?
It did, yes.
Okay. And at the time that you first observed the two individuals, were the individuals erect, standing? Were they on the ground? Were they crouched? How would you describe the individuals?
They're in a standing position.
In terms of the individuals, could you distinguish, or did you get enough of a close of a view in terms of, let me rephrase that. Was the view such that you could actually identify the individuals involved?
No,
Okay, and why was that?
it was too dark.
And by the way, I'm assuming when you moved from the kitchen to the sliding door, were you timing yourself? In other words, did you look at your watch and say, it's going to take me, let me see how long it takes? Were you timing yourself?
No,
Okay. If you could, estimate as best you can how long it took you to move from the kitchen where you were to the sliding glass door, if you can.
maybe about 15 seconds.
And you've stated that you believe that it appeared to be two individuals outside, is that correct?
Yes,
And at the time that you moved from the kitchen to the sliding glass door, did the noise that you hear continue? And I'm talking about sounds, or did it stop?
from what I remember, it continued.
Okay. Could you make out any other words or any type of other sound in terms of the noise other than noise out there?
No,
When you went to the sliding door, did the noise continue at that time too?
yes,
Did you hear screaming out there? Or tell me what you recall hearing out there.
I just heard what sounded like no.
Okay. You mentioned some interaction between two individuals and the arms flailing. How long did you stay there looking at what was going on outside?
It might have been about 15, 20 seconds.
What did you do then, ma'am?
After looking,
Yes, ma'am.
well, I went back to the stove to turn the stove off.
Okay. And going back to when you were looking outside and you observed what you've already described, were you able to observe the two individuals enough to be able to give a clothing description of the individuals?
At that time, no.
Okay. You mentioned were you able to see the individuals' faces?
No.
Okay. And in terms of you were looking back in your sliding glass door out to the thing, outside into the backyard, you mentioned they had moved left to right. Where were they when you observed them from the sliding glass door, when you say that they were, their arms were flinging? Were they on the pathway? Were they on the grass? Where were they?
When I saw them, they looked like they were on the pathway.
You mentioned going to the stove. Did you remain there, or did you end up going back to the sliding glass door?
After I took the stove off, I went back
Okay.
to the sliding glass.
And did you look outside at that time?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, when you're looking outside at that point, are you still seeing the two individuals out there? Or what do you see?
Once I took the stove off,
Yes, ma'am.
there was someone laying in the grass.
Okay. At some point prior to going to the stove, and while you were looking out the first time at the sliding glass door, At some point out there, did you see anybody else enter the picture? And what I mean by that, anybody else come into the backyard other than the two individuals that you mentioned?
There was 2 other people also looking out.
Okay. If you could, as best you can, tell us where those 2 other people that were looking out, where they were positioned as best you can.
One was right across from my home, looking out the glass door, and the next was right next to the home right across from mine, and that person actually came out on the porch.
Okay. That person that came out on the porch, did you see that person do anything other than come out to the porch?
I didn't see them do anything.
Do you hear him say anything?
Yes.
And I apologize, I neglected, I should not have led you. When I said he, that person that came out to the porch, could you tell whether that person was a man or a woman?
It was a man.
Okay. And when you said he came out, tell us if you can, he said something, tell us as best you can what you remember that person, the man, saying.
What I remember him saying was, "What is going on out here? What's going on? Do you need me to call the cops? Do you need me to call the cops?" He said it twice.
Okay. And did you see that person that came out onto the porch, onto his porch, or the residence where he came out of the porch, did you see that person remain outside, or did he go back inside?
He went back inside.
At some point when that happened, did the 2 individuals that you described as arms flaying with each other, did they remain in an erect position, or at some point were they in the crouch or on the ground?
I just remember them standing.
Okay. Did you keep looking at those individuals the whole time, or did you end up going back to the stove?
After he said what he said and he shut his door and went back, I went to take the stove off.
You mentioned after taking the stove off, and I know you didn't have a stopwatch, but can you estimate how long it took you to go back to the stove? Was it, you figured about the same 15 seconds, or did it take you longer or less? Did you run to the stove? How?
Well, it probably took me less than 15 seconds
Okay.
to go take the stove off because
Okay.
I didn't know what was happening outside.
Okay. And when you say you took the stove off, you mean you turned whatever you were cooking off and moved the pan somewhere else? I'm assuming it's a pan, but maybe not.
Yeah, I just took the stove off to go back to the door.
Okay. At that time, when you went out back to the sliding door, did you look outside?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned you observed something. What did you observe outside the second time?
It was just a body in the grass.
Okay. And the body that was in the grass, could you tell if the body was face up or face down?
I remember it being face down.
Okay. Did you see anybody else other than the body face down on the grass at that time?
No.
Okay. Doing everything that you've described at this time, did you hear any kind of shot?
When I went to take the stove off, that's when the shot occurred.
Okay. After you heard a shot and after you went to the sliding door and observed somebody on the ground, did you do anything in terms of notifying your sister or your niece or your niece's friend, or what did you do?
Once I looked out the sliding glass door and saw the body, I took the dog and went upstairs and spoke to my sister. I said, "I think someone shot."
Okay. At some point while you were upstairs, did you hear and see the police come out there?
After I spoke to her and I went back downstairs, there were flashlights outside and it was the police outside.
Okay. Did you yourself ever that evening go outside?
No.
Okay. At some point, were you also later interviewed by the police and later some law enforcement officer officials?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show you some photographs. If I could, Your Honor, may, with the court's permission, may the court dim the lights. Thank you. And if you, can you see that from where you're at?
Yes.
Do you see that there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try to, as best I can, enlarged an area there. Do you recognize that area there as the area where you lived back in February of 2012?
Yes.
Okay, and if I'm looking at that right there, would it be in the, I think we can use this to get, is it right here, would you have been living in this right here that I'm circling? In other words, your townhome would have been right there?
Yes.
Okay, and so that would be the third down from right here from the T?
Yes.
Is that correct right there? Okay. And you mentioned that you went out, or I'm sorry, you did not go out, but you looked out the sliding door. With the movement that you saw, or I'm sorry, you heard, would it have been coming from in this direction that I'm going to right here? In other words, this is the back of your residence right here. Would it have been going this way?
Yes.
Okay. So in that photograph right there would have been going up, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to need some assistance, Your Honor, if I may.
Do you want the light?
Sorry, no, I think I just need somebody that's more adept at this than I am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to show you states 3, and specifically your house from right there where you were living in February. You cannot see that. Is that correct from there? Or can you see it?
I can't see my house.
Okay. State Exhibit 4 is, would your residence have been in this area right here that I'm circling right there? In other words, is this from the T going into the corner and then 2 houses down around this area right here? Can you see it clearly from that photograph is what I'm trying to ask you.
No.
Okay. And that's for the record, I apologize, it's State's Exhibit 4. State's Exhibit 5, are we getting closer to where your residence be? If this is the corner right here, you would have been down 2?
Yes.
Okay. And it's still not very visible in that photograph, is that correct, State Exhibit 5?
Correct.
State Exhibit 11, would this have been the back porch that we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so this would have been your residence back in February of 2012, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and when you mentioned you looked out the sliding door, did you yourself go out into the porch to look out, or did you remain in the sliding door?
In the sliding door.
And when you mentioned movement from the back of your residence that you heard and then actually observed people, it was coming from the end of this photograph right here, State Exhibit 11, going across, is that correct?
Yes.
State Exhibit 37, I know that is a daytime photograph, but would this again show the residence back in February of 2012 right here that I'm circling it right here?
Yes.
Okay, and the movement was coming this way, is that correct? Towards the top of the T there?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you State Exhibit 38. Again, would your the residence back in February would have been right here?
Yes.
Okay. I think I'm through with the photographs, Your Honor. Turn this off. And may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been introduced into evidence in State Exhibit 139. And I'm going to ask you if you recognize this in terms of your address at that time was 2841, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the movement that you would have seen would have been coming this way, is that correct?
Yes.
I apologize. This would have been 2841, correct? And this is your backyard facing out towards the dogway or path?
Yes.
And you said it was from left to right going this way, is that correct?
Yes, from
Okay.
left to right.
Ms. Balador, I'm going to put a sticker where 2841, if I got the right place, back in February of 2012, where you were residing, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I apologize, I put that on State's Exhibit 139 for the record. I want to, if I could, move on to another subject other than that February 26th of 2012. Specifically, back in 2011, the latter part of 2011 and prior to February 26th of 2012, had you seen a person by the name of George Zimmerman in the retreat at Twin Lakes Townhomes?
I've seen him, yes.
And did you know him as a crime watch person or individual?
Yes.
Okay. Had he come a few months before, specifically before that February, handing out flyers about Crime Watch
Yes.
or Neighborhood Watch?
Yes.
Okay. And did he introduce himself as a Neighborhood Watch person?
Yes.
Okay. If I may have a moment, Your Honor? I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Cross.
I'll take a couple of minutes to get ready. I don't know if the court's anticipating the break or not. We're just going to go
I
through.
wasn't, but
Might I just have a moment? then?
yes, you may.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Couple of questions. Who's the last person you talked to about your testimony here today? Before today?
What do you mean?
Who was the last person you spoke with about your testimony before you came here today to give it?
The last people I spoke with was TC and
TC. Let's be a bit more formal if we might. Let's talk about his last name. Do you know it?
not
That's
offhand.
presuming that that's T.C. Osteen. Is he an investigator with the State Attorney's Office, 4th
Yes.
Judicial Circuit? When was the last time you spoke to him about your testimony?
We met on Thursday.
Okay, how much time did you spend with him?
Maybe about 45 minutes.
Okay. Did you tell him that you had heard noises moving from, as you say now, today, left to right?
What do you mean?
Okay. Today, you're testifying that you heard some noise out the back of your house and that you thought it was moving from your left to your right, correct?
Correct.
Did you tell him that last Thursday?
We didn't discuss that, but at
Okay.
during the initial investigation, I did.
Well, you spoke to T.C. Osteen about that?
When we did talk,
And that was this past Thursday?
no, it wasn't this past Thursday.
Okay, when
We
was
were
it?
just, this past Thursday, we were talking about the upcoming trial.
Okay. And presumably what your testimony was going to be, correct?
No, just making sure that I remembered what I said.
Your testimony.
Yes.
Did he go over with you your statements?
No, I read my statements.
Ah. Did he give them to you to read?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about which statements he gave you to read. Did he give you, for example, the statement that you gave to Sanford Police Department to review?
There was a tape.
Okay, he listened to the tape, right?
No, it was transcribed.
You read the transcript, correct?
Yes.
In that transcript, I'm sorry, when did you give that statement?
It was back in February of 2012.
Very close to this event, correct?
Yes.
Quite shortly thereafter.
Yes.
Okay. In that statement, and I just want to focus on this for just a few questions. In that statement, did you tell Sanford Police Department that you heard noise moving from left to right?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, you had a chance to look at it Thursday. I can have you review it today, but do you remember telling Investigator Serino your first statement that you ever talked about this case, anything whatsoever, at all, about hearing a noise that moved from left to right?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I might have just a moment, Your Honor.
May?
The transcript, was that something prepared by the state attorney's office?
Which transcript?
The one that you reviewed, that you told us about just a minute ago?
Well, there were several.
Okay. Let me have one marked, and I'm going to give it to you. See if this refreshes your recollection, okay? And what I want you to focus on when you're reviewing this transcript is where, if at all, you told Investigator Serino anything about this movement from left to right, okay?
I'm going to object at this time. I don't believe that's the same transcript
Well,
that
would
this
you want to
is.
show it to counsel?
Sure, but that's not its purpose. It's not a...
I don't need a comment, I just need you to show it to counsel.
Yeah, I'm not agreeing that this is the same transcript that this witness has reviewed.
Okay, if you want to approach.
As we're waiting, I guess,
Yes.
I'll just ask a few more questions, not to take too much time. Is it your specific memory today that you told Investigator Serino this noise movement from left to right? Or do you just not remember?
I believe I mentioned the noise. I don't know if at that time I said which direction.
Okay, you mentioned the noise, something like either saying no or something like ooh ah, your words. Is that about what you remember telling Investigator Serino?
That's part of the conversation.
Okay. Something else. You said they were running in the back. Remember that?
Probably would have said there were movement in the back.
They were what?
Movement in the back.
Your words, I'm just repeating them. Did you say, let me ask it this way. Who's the first person that you actually do remember saying the words, they were moving from left to right, presuming it wasn't just here in your testimony today? Who's the last person you said that to? I'm sorry, I apologize. Who was the first person you said that to?
I have no idea.
Okay. We're going to find an exact transcript of your conversation with Officer Serino, so we're going to come back to that. But you also spoke with John Batchelor from FDLE, correct? Remember that?
Yes.
That was 3 weeks after your conversation with Investigator Serino?
Yes.
John Batchelor's with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, right?
Okay.
And they were doing an investigation where they came back and talked to you again? Do you recall that?
Yes.
When you sat with T.C. Osteen last Thursday, did you also review the transcript of your conversation with John Batchelor from FDLE?
We didn't sit down and review any, I just reviewed them on my own.
I'm sorry. He made sure you had them
Yes.
and that you would look them over.
Yes.
So when I say review them, I don't mean that he sat with you sentence by sentence or word by word. What I mean is that you had an opportunity to review all of your written statements in this case, correct?
I didn't have any written statements.
Well, the transcripts.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. That included the transcript we're about to get with Officer Serino, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the one with Investigator Batchelor I just mentioned to you, correct? You had
Give me 1 second. Your last answer, you have to give a verbal answer for the court reporter.
Yes.
Okay. So you looked over those two. You also looked over your deposition testimony, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember in any of your 12-page statement with John Batchelor ever mentioning anything about movement going from left to right?
I can't remember.
Does that mean no, or does that mean today you don't recall whether or not you told him?
Today, I don't recall if I told him that.
We're in a similar position. I do have something I'd like to mark and approach the witness with to have her review it. I'll forward a copy to the state. It's a similar transcript as earlier, but I think it serves its purpose for refreshing her recollection. It's a transcript. This is pen.
This is the FDLE, Mr. Romero.
Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna, I apologize.
Approach.
Ms. Bottinger, what we'll do is actually give you official transcripts of these to make sure that these are the ones that you had a chance to review. So we're going to wait on that for just a few minutes, and we'll come back. After I ask you this question, in your deposition that we took of you, one of the transcripts you reviewed, that was more recently, wasn't it? Just a few months ago.
Yes.
In that deposition, do you recall taking the deposition?
Yes.
You were there and you remember your answers?
I remember taking the deposition.
Okay. The same deposition that you had an ability to review, that transcript last Thursday. That's the deposition I'm talking to you about.
Okay.
Okay. Do you remember reviewing that deposition transcript?
Yes.
Okay. Anywhere in that deposition transcript do you remember telling me, Mr. West, Mr. Delariando, who questioned you after we did, anything at all about movement from left to right?
I don't remember.
Okay. So I ask you once again, when was the first time, and tell me if it was today, when was the first time you ever told anybody that you heard or saw, whatever it was, movement from left to right outside of your back door? Was it today? And if so, just tell us.
I don't know if it was just today.
Okay. I'll ask it this way. Could it be that the first time you mentioned this new piece of evidence was just now as you've testified?
It could be. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we seem to have the transcripts. So, if I might,
We just approach the bench.
Yes, you may.
The record of what we're providing.
Transcripts be marked for identification purposes. I guess this would be N, O, and D. And
Yes, you may.
now I want to do this in order, so I'm going to hand you this and ask if you can identify that. Oh, I'm sorry, it is letter N, Exhibit N for identification purposes. Can you identify that for me, ma'am?
It's the telephone interview.
And that's the same transcript that you looked at last Thursday, correct?
Yes.
And how many times have you met with the State Attorney's Office before last Thursday?
I believe 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Tell me about those. When were they? We have last Thursday when you met with T.C. Osteen. Anybody else in that meeting?
Yes, my sister.
Together?
Yes.
In the same room?
Yes.
Discussing testimony?
No, not discussing, just making sure we were comfortable.
Oh, okay, for 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Time before that?
You want to know when?
The last time you talked, you said 2 or 3 other times. Last time you talked to anyone from the state attorney's office about your testimony here today.
I don't know what day or month.
What'd you talk about?
We did the deposition.
Talked about the deposition?
Yes.
Okay. Talked about what you said in deposition?
We were in the deposition.
Okay, so you
That's
met
when I-
before the deposition?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry. Is the other meeting you're talking about the actual deposition itself?
Yes.
Okay. You met with them just before the deposition as well, though, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. So that was another time where you talked about your testimony just before I took your, or Mr. West took your deposition, correct?
What do you, I don't understand.
I'll
what
phrase it
you're
this
asking.
way. One of the investigators picked you up from your house and brought you to the courtroom, and they gave you your previous statements to review.
Yes.
And they talked to you about them, correct or no?
Yes.
Okay. So that's Thursday, just before your deposition, and what about the time before that?
It was when the state decided to. It was when the state decided that they had to do the investigation, so then we met then.
Okay. So, you have in front of you just didn't know how it got filled up. You have before you a transcript of your investigation, I'm sorry, your statement on March 1st, 2012 with investigator Serino. You knew him to be the chief investigating officer in this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Review that if you would, as you did last Thursday. Point me to the part in this 4-page document where you tell Investigator Serino, back in March 2012, that you heard movement going from left to right.
Page 2. Oh. It didn't mention left to right.
I'm sorry?
It did not mention left to right.
Okay. Matter of fact, on page 2, you say that you couldn't see either one of them, correct?
Impeachment?
Sustained.
Back then, did you tell Investigator Serino whether or not you could even see anybody out there?
I said I couldn't really see back there because there wasn't a lot of lights on back there. All I saw was arms flailing.
So, for this line of questions, I want to stay we'll come back to this, but I want to stay very specific to the issue concerning the movement. Doesn't exist in that statement, does it?
Movement or?
Well, I'm sorry, testimony concerning movement from left to right. Let me be more specific, I apologize. Does it exist anywhere in your first statement to Investigator Serino that you mentioned anything about movement of some people or persons from left to right outside of your townhome?
It says they were running in the back.
Okay. Is that a no?
It says they were running in the back. I didn't mention left to right.
Now, when you say they, of course, you're talking only what you hear. You did not see anything, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when you say they're running, you're talking about only what you hear.
Correct.
Okay. Now let's just move forward as to that issue until 3 weeks later with the testimony with John Batchelor on March 20th, 2012. And let me show you what we've marked as Defendant's Exhibit M for identification purposes. It's a little bit longer. I'm going to ask you to take a moment to look at it. But for right now, just with the focus is whether or not that movement issue is discussed, okay? Tell us when you've reviewed the entire statement, if you would.
Okay.
Can you point me to the page in the line area where you mention the movement from left to right? Is it in there?
No, I see that I mentioned that I heard movement.
And if you would just point me to where you're talking about with that so I can see what you're saying.
Page 9.
If you would, maybe give me just the first sentence.
It says it was dark. It's the last SB on that line, on that page.
Okay, there you say, it was just so dark out there, I just saw movement. Is that what you're speaking about? Is that what you
Yeah.
just referenced to me?
Yes, but
Okay. That.
I don't think that is.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Answer.
I don't think that's in reference to the initial movement. I think it's to the arms.
I was going to clear it up and I interrupted you and I apologize. That was actually when you went back out the second time, went to the sliding glass door after you heard the conversation with John Good, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not what we're talking about now, is it?
Correct.
Okay. It does not exist in this statement either, does it? Any suggestion by you that there was movement from left to right?
It wasn't mentioned.
And now let me approach, if I might, with Defendant's Exhibit O for identification purposes, which is a transcript of the deposition, and ask if you could review that. Again, the focus of this line of questioning being solely on the issue of where in that deposition you mentioned movement from left to right.
I don't see mention of left to right.
So I ask again, when was the first time, or was it literally today? I'll ask you this way. Was today the first time that you ever said to anybody throughout all of your statements and involvement in this case, including your meetings with the state attorney's office on at least 3 occasions, that there was movement from left to right? Was today the first time?
Well, based on these transcripts, it was the first time being recorded.
Well,
Yes.
no, I'm asking you right here today, was this the first time that you ever mentioned to anybody that there was movement from left to right?
No.
And then the question would be, who was the first person that you told that to?
When I talked to my sister.
When you spoke to your sister about this event?
Yes, when it first occurred.
Okay. We'll get to her shortly. But you did not, I'll say it this way, you did not tell anyone in law enforcement, including the state attorney's office and their investigators, about movement from left to right until your testimony here today?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any reason?
No, I know I must have mentioned it. It's just not in the transcript because that's what I remember.
And we are now speaking of only what you heard, correct? You did not see anything out there?
Correct.
So let's go back to that. Of course, the witness is to retrieve the items from. So you're at the kitchen cooking, right? And you hear some noise. Is that the first thing that causes you to have some attention to what was going out there on February 26th, 2012?
Yes.
Okay. Nobody else was there with you, right? Your sister was in the apartment, but not right there in the kitchen with you, right?
Yes.
Nor was your niece. She was upstairs with a friend in the front.
Correct.
Okay. As we talk about your sister, she never saw or heard anything about this, did she?
I don't know what she saw.
Well, you were there, right? Was she?
She was upstairs. I was downstairs.
Okay. She would not have seen anything from the perspective that you had seen it, correct? She didn't see it from downstairs, at least, right?
Correct.
So that were she to come in and say that she saw anything about this event from the downstairs area, that would not be true?
Correct.
Did she tell you that she duplicated your story as to what happened out there that night?
What do you mean?
When you talked to her, as you said you did your sister tell you that she didn't see anything, but was going to say that she did?
At this point, it's hearsay as to what her sister
Sustained.
told her.
So you're talking now about cooking, and you hear a noise. Tell me the noise again?
It sounds like no or something along that line.
Okay. And what did you do in response to that?
I looked out the window.
And you couldn't see,
Looked out the window.
and you couldn't see anything, correct?
Correct.
And why was that?
Because it was dark.
All right. Now, we've spent some time showing the jury sort of where you are. You are to orient us without using the map for a moment. If you go out your door and look off to your left, I'm sorry, your right, across the path, that's where John Good lives?
Yes.
And then beyond them is Miss Lauer, correct?
I don't know who that is.
Okay. So, as you're looking now across that area, it is too dark for you to see anybody? Is that accurate?
What do you mean?
The first time, when you looked out the first time, you heard a noise, caught your attention, you looked out the window, and you couldn't see anything because it was too dark. Is that accurate?
I couldn't identify figures. I couldn't identify who it was out there.
Could you even tell that it was people at that point?
I can tell it was people.
And how far away were they from you?
They were a house down and over.
A house down and over. Would that put them then, when you say a house down, we're talking towards the, now known as the T intersection?
Yes.
And when you say over, you mean towards John Good's apartment?
Yes.
On the other side of the path?
It was in the pathway.
At the pathway?
Yes.
But right out in front of John Good's door? Is that accurate?
At the time I first saw, it was in the pathway.
Right out from John Good's door, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If I might approach the display just for a moment. You do this in a way where we can all see it, hopefully. This is you, of course, right?
Yes.
You came out here and looked. Oh, I'm sorry, you looked through a window. Is that accurate?
I initially looked through the window.
Where's the window? I'm going to just lean it down so you just point to the window.
Here.
So you looked out this window here, correct?
Yes.
And this is, what is this right here?
That's the fenced-in porch.
The screened-in enclosure
Yes.
with a screen?
Yes.
Any shades or blinds on it?
No.
Okay. So you looked through here, correct? Is that about this area here? Who lives here? Is that John Good?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that they were a house down and across the path? Is that your testimony?
A house down and in the path. Yes.
Let me ask you this. Did you see the people? Were they about here when you saw them? Could that be right?
Yes.
Okay. So they could have been right there when you first saw these people
Yes.
that I think you said you saw flailing.
Yes.
You couldn't tell if they were standing up or laying down, right?
They looked erect. They looked standing.
They looked erect to you back then?
Yes. They
What do you
looked
mean
like
by that?
They looked standing.
Did one of them look standing or both of them? Let me ask you this way. Could one have been on top of the other, kneeling down over him? Maybe like this?
I couldn't determine that.
Could they be like this?
I couldn't determine that.
Okay. Too dark?
Yes.
And it was at that time, well, when you first looked out, we just talked about that, then a few, did you say, and I don't mean to jump around on you, but at some point you moved over towards the sliding glass door, I think you said about 15 seconds later or so?
When I saw the individuals, I was at the sliding glass door. I didn't see anybody from the window.
I apologize. I thought we were just talking about what you saw out the window. So out the window you saw nothing?
Correct.
And only the second time so you saw nothing. Second time when you went to the sliding glass door was when you saw the people where we just identified?
Yes.
Okay. And it was at that time that you heard John Good say something to them?
Yes.
Okay. And I think what you said he said was, I'm calling the police, or words such as that, right?
Something to that, yes.
Okay. And then what'd you do next?
After he said that, I went back to take the stove off.
Okay. didn't do anything else related to this particular event going on outside until you heard the noise now identified as a gunshot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Didn't see anything else, didn't even look to see anything else, correct?
Not when I went back to the stove.
Right. Let's just follow that train of thought for a moment and say, when you went back, what did you do when you heard the gunshot?
I looked out the sliding glass door, grabbed the dog, and went upstairs.
Was that the second time you looked out the sliding glass door?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you see then?
It was a body.
Okay, what else?
That's all I remember.
Just one body?
Yes.
Did you see a man with a flashlight?
No.
Did you see Mr. Zimmerman staggering about?
No.
Lights still quite poor?
Yes.
And at that point, having heard the gunshot, you just, again, sort of retreated, go back upstairs where your sister was?
Yes.
I might just have a moment, Your Honor. Was there any reason why when was the first time that you gave a statement to anyone about this?
The first time I gave a statement was the community had a town hall about the event. And
Okay.
I gave a statement that day.
You know that you witnessed the shooting on February 26th, correct?
I didn't think what I saw was significant, or what I heard was significant.
Okay. You found out the next day that there was a shooting, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that you at least saw some of it, correct?
Yes.
Did you like in the Facebook term, Justice for Trayvon Martin page? Correct? You did, right?
Probably, yes.
Okay, just curious. Would I be accurate in suggesting that you certainly have a feeling of sympathy for the Martin family?
I have sympathy for both.
Okay. But you liked the Trayvon Martin, Justice for Trayvon Martin Facebook. You didn't like the Joe Zimmerman Facebook, did you? Like in the Facebook terminology?
Correct.
So with your sympathy for both, why did you not do both and just do Mr. Trayvon's Justice for Trayvon page?
The opportunity didn't present itself.
Okay. I'm sorry, I approached the witness without your permission, I'll just show you the
Yes, you
exhibit.
may do so.
Any objection to being admitted?
Yeah, I object to it being admitted. You can show her to refresh her memory or
Sorry.
something, I have no objection.
It was indiscovered, I apologize. Could
No,
you,
when we have conversations, it has to be through me. I will refer you again to the court's order.
yes, Your Honor, I
Thank you.
apologize. Could you take a look at that and tell me if you can identify it?
Yes.
What is that?
Drawing, a sketch I did.
That's what you did, correct?
Correct.
And is that accurate? Is that an accurate copy of the sketch that you drew for the officers?
Yes.
Any changes on it except for the addition of the exhibit?
Correct.
It's correct, isn't it?
Yes, it's correct.
I would move this into evidence, Your Honor, now being identified by the witness as the sketch that she drew.
Okay, any objections?
Same objection, Your Honor, in terms of what that we have previously discussed.
Okay, well, please
Our case in
approach.
chief.
Please approach.
Madam Clerk, if you could simply mark it as a
Yes, you may.
This is now in evidence. I'd like to ask you some questions about it. Firstly, can you tell me the date that you prepared that?
It's dated March 20th, 12th.
Okay. And if you could just describe what that is intending to show.
Where my house is located in reference to where I believe I saw arms. Arms?
I see a notation of arms identified on that document. The designation, if I'm looking at it with the orientation of the writing, top left corner is your house, correct? That's the house that we've been talking about?
Correct.
And then you look across the pathway to where you have his second house, and you further identify it as John Good's house, correct?
Yes.
Then I see a hedge and then the second house screen, correct?
And the house screen.
End house screen, I'm sorry. Thought there was a 2. And that is in fact the end of that row of houses, correct?
Correct.
And this was a picture of what you saw the only time you saw people out there, correct?
Correct.
Remember to retrieve the exhibit, Your Honor? You had stated on a previous occasion that you could not make out any words whatsoever from what you heard outside. Is that correct?
Correct. The only words I can remember is no.
Or an ooh-ah kind of sound?
Yes.
Could they have, were they screams?
It was a screaming noise with that sound.
You have heard, I'm presuming, what we now identify as the 911 call, correct? Have you ever heard that tape
On the media?
on the media?
Yes.
Okay. You heard the screams in the background?
Yes.
Were those screams similar to the screams that you say that you heard? Or are they different?
They're similar.
Could they in fact have been the same screams?
Yes.
Again, just a moment, Your Honor, maybe getting close
Yes,
to the
you may.
end. You have testified about the word flailing, and then I note also on your sketch you mentioned the word arms. Can you tell us a bit more about what you saw when you saw arms flailing?
I just saw arms moving up and down.
Like this?
Yes.
Is that, and I move for the jury's benefit, my arms up and down in
Yes.
this type of movement? And don't say yes just because I did it. If it was something different, tell me it's different. But is that what you saw up and down?
It was more like this,
Okay.
fast pace.
Okay. Just a moment, Your Honor, may be done. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor, for the questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Your Honor, and with the court's permission, I have a question witness regarding the documents that Mr. O'Mara showed us.
Yes, you may.
For the purpose of the record, I'm going to be showing the witness what's been marked just for identification purposes as M like in Mary, N like in Nancy, and O like in Oscar. Ma'am, I'm going to show you those three exhibits, starting off with N like in Nancy, M like in Mary, and O like in Oscar. Mr. O'Mara, well, before I get into that, this happened back in February of 26 of 2012, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. O'Mara asked you about that you came forward, I believe is when they had a town hall meeting, like at the retreat at Twin Lakes, the clubhouse, the police were asking if anybody has seen anything, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when it originally happened, you didn't go out there and say, hey, I want to be a witness and I want to get on national TV, did you?
Correct.
You wanted to remain silent. You didn't want to get involved at all. Is that true?
Correct.
Now, regarding the one question that Mr. O'Mara repeatedly asked you, and he asked you to reference the three documents that you have in front of you. I believe they're M like in Mary, N like in Nancy, and O like in Oscar. I believe N that is in front of you is the statement that you gave, a transcript of the statement you gave Investigator Chris Serino. Did Investigator Chris Serino ever ask you the movement that you saw when you described on page 2, specifically when you said, I heard noise, I was screaming noise, and I thought it was kids playing in the back because they normally do. And then it sounded like somebody was saying either no or hum, and they were running in the back. Did Mr. Serino specifically say when they were running, tell me which direction were they running? Did he ever ask you that?
No.
Ma'am, now what I want to reference, the next part is the investigator, I'm sorry, that should be Exhibit M in front of you, like Mary. When you were asked again about, by Investigator John Baxter with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, to draw a picture, you recall that? And they asked you in terms of the arms flailing, did that investigator ask you at any time when you described the running or what occurred to tell him which way the running was from left to right or right to left? Did they ever ask you that?
No.
Okay. And finally, ma'am, in the deposition that Mr. West took where I was present and where Mr. O'Mara was present, and that should be State's Defense, I'm sorry, what's been marked for identification purposes, Defense Exhibit O, is the thick one, that I believe is a total of 30, let me get it right, 31 pages. On page 5 of that deposition, you see there on the top, when you stated, I was in the kitchen cooking dinner, I heard some running and garbled scream. That's what caught my attention. Question, did the running and garbled scream seem to be happening at the same time? Yes. Did Mr. West or Mr. O'Mara ever ask you what direction was the running from left to right or right to left?
No.
You recall later on that same page 5 there, you stating it sounded just like running, so I would say yes, it sounded like feet on the ground. You recall that answer that you gave?
Yes.
Did Mr. O'Mara or did Mr. West ever ask you which direction was the running coming from?
No.
Okay. Do you recall in that same deposition stating, when being asked, you distinguish any words specifically on page 5 of that deposition, and you saying, in terms of no, the word you only heard was no, do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. I want to reference that same deposition on page 10, ma'am. Your answer in terms of being described, what was going on when the figures were up there. So they looked like they were in a standing position, or they were bent over, standing over straight. Do you recall giving that answer? On page number 10, I'm sorry, page 10, under number 5 through 9. Do you recall stating they were, it looked like they were in a standing position?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mayor, may I have a moment?
Yes, you may. Grace.
And do you recall on page 17 of that deposition where Mr. West was asking you questions about that diagram, which I believe is the last exhibit that you were showing, clarifying that on page 17, line 17, clarifying that the diagram is backwards. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me have a moment, Your Honor. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Just a follow up. Mr. Deliano suggested that the reason why we waited, I guess, a week or so was because you didn't want to just, I think his words were, run out and be a witness on national TV. And you said yes?
Correct.
Yeah. You've actually been on national TV about this case, though, haven't you?
I did.
Go ahead.
I did a video, but it was never broadcast.
But you wanted to be on national TV. Let me ask it that way.
No, I didn't want to. They actually spoke with me for about 30 minutes before I decided to say anything.
And that was with, I think, Matt Gutman or somebody, right?
Yes.
They came in and they videotaped you and you talked all about the case, right?
They were combing the neighborhood to find out more about what happened.
Okay. So it wasn't really your reason for not rushing to the law enforcement to tell them what you knew about this case really wasn't you just hiding from the spotlight of national news, was it?
I don't understand your question.
I'm following up on Mr. Delaranda said that the reason why you didn't go talk to law enforcement right away and waited a while was because you didn't want to be on national TV and just become some superstar witness. And I'm curious that since you said yes to that, why you decided to go on national TV anyway?
To do the broadcasting,
Yes.
I was only doing it so they can bring attention to what had happened.
Okay. Which was that you thought George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin
I've never said that.
improperly and he should be prosecuted for it, right?
I've never said that.
Why'd you sign the petition at change.org that said, I am hereby in favor, by signing the petition, of prosecute the killer of our son, 17-year-old Trayvon Martin? You did sign that petition, right? I'll show you Facebook.
I did like.
You signed the
So
petition.
saying like means I signed the petition?
No. In addition to liking, I'm asking you now if you signed the change.org petition. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may. Show it to counsel, please.
I'm sorry. That is a problem.
Let me show you this. First of all, it's just your Facebook, correct? That's your page?
Yes.
Okay, and that, can you tell me what that says, right?
You're blocking the view of the restaurant to the side. Thank you.
Tell me what that says on your Facebook front page right there. Just read that.
Prosecute the killer of our son, 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. Sign the petition.
I'm curious, one last thing. Since this only came up today, for the first time that you talked to anybody about it, how did you know to answer Mr. Delirando's questions in a way that got out information that's never been mentioned before?
I don't understand your question.
This is the first time you've talked to anyone about it by your own testimony, correct?
To anybody about the Facebook?
The movement, no, I'm sorry, I apologize. The movement from left to right? Just curious how you knew that today was the day that that evidence, having never been spoken from your lips before, today was the day that that should come out.
I was just saying what I remembered.
Nothing further.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. May Ms. Bador be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You are excused. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess for the evening while you're getting your notepads to close up and put on the chair. I'm going to remind you over the recess tonight, you're not to read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case. You're not to discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. You're not to use any type of electronic device to do any independent research about the case, people, places, things, or terminology. And you're not to read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, or blogs about the case. Do I have everybody's assurance that they'll abide by these instructions? Is there anybody who feels they cannot do so? Okay, we'll begin tomorrow at 9 a.m. If you'll please follow Deputy Jarvis outside the courtroom. Leave your notepads face down. Councilors, please be seated. Is there anything that we need to take up before we recess for the evening?
30 seconds with the court at the bench.
Yes.